Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 215. I am Peter, and joining me, thankfully, returning, is Matt.
Oh yeah, it was missed.
Yes.
Once.
Yes, you missed the week of the bloodbath, and lots of bloodbath talk.
Oh, fun. So Connor got slammered, or is that only bloodlust?
Oh dear. No, I had a very long series talk last week about the future of, well, everything.
Yeah.
But yes, Connor's also here.
Yeah, still knocking around.
Yes. And we got a question.
Despite what the universe has tried.
Yes, we have some questions later. One of them is pertaining to Connor's continued existence. We'll get to that.
I have seen
In a little bit.
Oh, I'm excited.
But we're going to go through some comic books this week, of course. DC Comics Podcast, naturally. We are going to be talking about Death Metal Guidebook issue 1, Batman 97, Justice League 51, and Aquaman 51.
that is not the issue of Aquaman. It's Aquaman 62.
62. Clearly, I've just written down 51 twice. Fair enough. But yeah, so we have 4 new books this week. Not a busy week. A couple of Patreon books. I'll be talking about American Vampire issue 9. Carl will talk about Undiscovered Country issue 7. And this is a really awkwardly timed recording. We record it at the same time as we always do, but it's awkward this week because we start more or less. I mean, okay, it's a little bit later now, but we came online just after the DC Fandome started, so we don't really have any news yet. But I wanted to just kind of look at the schedule because we were supposed to do this last week and we kind of forgot because we had so much other crap to talk about. Between the bloodbath and the solicits and everything else. But it's kind of funny that even though we're very, very early on in it, we already have 2 trailers. Although one of them wasn't intentional, one of them was leaked. In 4x3 of all things. I don't know what's going on with that. But the Justice League Snyder Cut trailer did leak a little early, which Matt watched. I don't know if Connor bothered watching.
For what's this, sorry? I was watching the new gameplay for Gotham Knights that just dropped.
Snyder Cut. Snyder Cut.
Oh, no, I don't give a shit about Snyder Cut. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot barge pole, so...
Well, fine. We'll get to Gotham Knights in a minute. Just you calm down. Very morose, I thought, Matt.
Yeah, I said dour. It's the tone I did not want, and it doesn't feel like Superman's gonna have a big role. So, yeah, basically what I thought before Whedon came in. So hey, at least they're sticking to what they said it was gonna be, and that's gonna be not fun. So
that's true. They're sticking to their guns. I can't say anything else.
Right.
I mean, there was footage of Iris in there. All the stuff was meant to be in there and got cut at some point.
Yeah, a lot more Cyborg. Which is after watching almost a complete first season of Doom Patrol. I got to get back to it, but I still prefer the Doom Patrol version of the character. It seems. Cyborg to me seems to work better in episodic form.
What stuck out to me in this trailer is that Cyborg's like prosthetic attachments in Doom Patrol does look a little bit on the cheap side. However, seeing the CG again for Cyborg in this trailer made me sort of go, I think I'll take the cheap prosthetics over the CG.
Yeah, because there's a fine line to where Doom Patrol definitely feels like a TV show in that way, where it is definitely a lower budgeted type thing. And if you have a higher budget, then, you're going to have a primarily CG character that's not taking out a mustache, right? Like, at least go all in and make it look really good, right? Like, say what you will about the first Transformers movie. The Transformers look great.
Oh yeah, the effects are at least. I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but when I saw it in 2007, the effects did look fantastic. I mean,
I know Connor just watched them. What would you say, Connor?
All
Transformers.
Of them, everyone.
The first one.
First one holds up better than I expected. It's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's solid. They get progressively worse over the next couple.
Talk about the CG on the robots.
Oh, the CG.
In the first one.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's not terrible.
So, it's for a 13-year-old movie.
I've still seen worse in the last couple of years. They obviously had a budget for CG,
right.
So
So that's always my take, that if you're gonna have that budget for CG, at least put in the extra work, and maybe the stuff's unfinished still. I don't know. I don't care about the narrative. I used to care about the narrative about this. I don't care anymore.
Speaking of CG, actually, I thought Darkseid, who you see in the start of the trailer, looked a bit in the rough side to me.
It looked video game. Like, this is what the villains in Fallen Order look like, and that's fine because it's a video game. You know, it's not a big budget movie.
Yeah.
You know?
If it felt like it was like the opening cutscene to like Injustice 3 or something like that, I was expecting.
Yeah. And even Steppenwolf with his improved look, and he's just spiny now, like a hedgehog or a porcupine. I'm like, if you're excited over it, cool. I'm happy you're happy. I'm ready to move on. And none of the other news that came out this week seems to agree with me about wanting just to move on. So,
I mean, the song playing over this trailer is literally Hallelujah, which
it's Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
I feel like it's almost like a almost too on the nose meta choice for all the people who were campaigning for this.
Well, I feel they're also like not just that, but I feel like they're trying to do the Logan trailer kind of thing with the Johnny Cash, you know, and a man comes around, and that really worked. But for that story of a battered and beaten down man that wants to repent for that's not Justice League. So I don't know why using Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Yeah, it's not the first ever. In fact, actually, I can't believe I wasn't even going to bring this up. So, you remember how Michael Keaton got added to the Flash movie? This week, Ben Affleck got added to the Flash movie, and I like, my complaint keeps coming back to the same thing. I don't want the first ever Flash movie to be a Flashpoint adaptation, and now that we're filling up with multiple Batmen, like...
So years ago, me and Pete got into an argument on one of the other shows we did.
Oh dear.
And it got deleted because it got pretty heated. And poor Skinner was sitting there like a tennis referee, not knowing what to do. And Pete goes, you know what? That's not good for anybody. We're just going to delete it. And my argument was, my fear with Batman is that they're going to start throwing him in everything. And I said, I feel the Flash movie is going to be primarily about Batman. And Pete's like, well, I don't think they'll do that.
Well, hold on. To be fair, this was a different era before a lot of things happened.
Yes. But I just want to point out that my example that I threw out there,
Matt's trying to make up for some terrible predictions this past week by showing good ones from the past.
Yeah, it was just well, no one saw it. The only people that were there were Skinner and Pete. So, but it was always my worry that once it was Batman v Superman, and then we hear that Batman was showing up in Suicide Squad, that we were just going to get Batman and everything. And thankfully, that hasn't held true. You know, there's more Superman in Shazam than there's Batman. Right?
Oh, sure.
Like, and there's none in, I mean, there's some in Harley Quinn, like they reference it in the Birds of Prey, but you know, that's set in Gotham. You're going to expect that. And Aquaman, there's none. So someone that's as big of a Flash as I am, as a fan of that character, and then Batman, and we all know how I feel about that. It's a bummer, man.
That being the idea for the first ever Flash movie. It's just in the same way that this first Justice League movie is this dour, like Superman coming back from the dead. All of it. It upsets me. That said, though, on a more positive note, just because I'm not always want to be negative, I actually do think the logo for the new standalone Batman movie looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
The font and the logo inside it, I thought it was kind of pulpy and industrial. I was kind of into it.
Someone pointed out it's very gothic, and we haven't had really a gothic feel. We've definitely had like a what's the architecture choice that you always see? My brain's not working today very well. You know, it's like the 1940s style architecture, Art Deco. You know, we get that from Batman the Animated Series. This definitely feels like more of the comics Batman, almost like it is that gothic version of Gotham that's being held together by shadows.
It feels like they took Nolan's sort of grittiness and then added in like a sort of almost steampunk-esque sort of feel to it.
Gaslight.
Yeah,
is what I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure if anyone else would agree with me. But I was getting Gotham by Gaslight font vibes, so that's pretty steampunk. I have faith in that creative team. So
I do.
And, you know, Matt Reeves and even Robbie Patz.
Honestly, it's the one thing, because I don't have any interest in any sort of continuation of anything to do with Snyder's stuff. So, and that includes Affleck as Batman, even though at face value, doing multiverse shenanigans is kind of a fun DC thing to do at some point.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and Ezra Miller showed up on Flash, right? It's almost in Crisis.
Yeah, that's true.
He showed up.
Yeah, he's still wildly miscast though, so I am not even excited for his conclusion at all. But the point,
multiverse, the fact that it exists, fine. But let's move on after this.
But the point I was actually trying to make though is that I actually, like, I'd be more annoyed at still sticking to Affleck and still doing stuff related to all that, except for the fact that we actually have a whole new standalone Batman that's got nothing to do with any of this. And who knows, maybe if they're going to properly flashpoint it, maybe like when Barry comes out at the end of that movie, it'll be Robert Pattinson standing there because he's changed things. Like maybe they'll actually try and completely all make it fit together. I don't know.
Also, if they could change Ezra too.
I know, that'd be great.
Speed Force. It doesn't have to be Grant. Like, it could be anybody cast as
I'd rather it wasn't Grant. To be honest, after 7 seasons of that Flash show, I'm more than ready for someone else.
Well, I've seen a lot of people throwing that out there, because he's a lot of people's Flash now, so, but yeah, I was never a fan. Like, people do that with the Marvel stuff too, like wanting them, the mainstream characters to show up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm kind of like, just let Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. be its own thing, and eventually that's what they did. Like, yeah, you had occasionally, like, you guys watched way more of it than I did.
All of it, in fact.
Yeah, so, like, they would bring in the girl from Thor. Again, my brain today. Sif. They brought her in, and that's about as far as and close as you want to go, I think. And I think the same goes for DC. Like, it's cool to reference each other at that point and on Multiverse and whatnot, but how'd they handle that with Doom Patrol and the Titans? Because you guys watched that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
They're completely unrelated shows.
Yeah.
Even though technically there was a weird backdoor pilot of Doom Patrol in Titans, which featured most of the same cast.
Everyone but the Chief, basically.
Yeah, everyone but Chief. That is basically not canon in the Doom Patrol show.
Gotcha.
Doesn't line up with that at all.
So it's not even multiversal shenanigans. That's just a different version of Doom Patrol that exists in
happens
Titans
to feature most of the same actors, but yeah, it's a different version entirely.
It was like, and I mean, obviously it was aired, but it was like sometimes you get like the on-air pilot where they redo it because they want to make it better, but they actually do have like a sort of initial like private version that they've done with mostly the same cast, and maybe they have someone who's not Alison Hannigan as Willow, that kind of thing.
So if they throw Titans over out of morbid curiosity, I might.
Don't waste your time.
That said, I have so much stuff I need to get caught up on.
You better fix the watch.
Yeah, no, I finished season 1, and it's fantastic.
Season 2 is even better.
So I'm not that big of a fan of Dark Knight Rises, but the fact that the Bane on Harley speaks with that Bane's affectation has made me really want to revisit Tom Hardy's Bane. And it's the one Batman movie that's not on HBO Max, so I'd have to dig out my Blu-ray, and out of convenience.
Bane in that show is fantastic. They do some great stuff with him in season 2.
Yeah, well, I'll get there, but yeah, it is really good.
Have you had? I don't know if it was season 1 or 2. The bit with Penguin's like nephew's bar.
That's season 1.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but no, so a decent. I mean, HBO Max becoming the home of these refugees. It's almost basically like a Earth 2 scenario, like what ceases to exist.
Well, no, I mean, I think we said this last week, but if DC Universe like hadn't started when it did, if it had been like planning for a year later, it would never have happened. It would have just been like, oh, HBO Max is launching. No, it'll be part of anything that was going to happen was going to be part of that. It just happened to start early enough that they had a couple of years out of it. But yeah, so we also got the Wonder Woman trailer, which just launched literally minutes before we started. And this is the serious plot trailer that's teasing the villain, and we do get a look at Cheetah, which is the main thing to talk. There's a couple of cool action moments with Wonder Woman herself, spinning the lasso and all sorts. But it's really all about Cheetah. And she's moving around quite quickly. I'm not sure how I feel about how she looks. All I can really say is that I saw cats, so it can definitely be worse.
Yeah, sure.
Something interesting.
I'm not trying to give too much. It's a trailer. I It was a little bit too CGE. So, but maybe seeing Kristen Wiig in the makeup, physically might make me feel different.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. I was just scoping for some more news. And there's a headline that says, yes, Kristen Wiig is an actual cheetah person in Wonder Woman 84. Just like, yes, the general public should be used to comic book stuff by now. Like, that should be a headline, I feel.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just a really unfortunate timing that the Wonder Woman movie with Cheetah happened to come out, less than, or well, depends when it comes out. Actually, it could be a long time from now still, depending. But coming out so relatively soon after Cats, it almost has this weird expectation of what Cheetah's going to look like on it. Although admittedly, originally it was supposed to come out before. And apparently Patty Jenkins actually said she regretted delaying the movie, and that was before the pandemic hit. So now that it keeps getting pushed back because of the pandemic, I imagine she's just kind of like, damn it, we should have just released last year, like planned.
Yeah, she also said it's not really a sequel, so I don't know how that's going to fit in, because the trailer definitely makes it feel like a sequel.
Yeah. Also, I learned from this trailer that apparently radar wasn't a thing back in World War One. Is it?
Yeah, that's sound waves bouncing off of stuff, Pete. They didn't definitely have that. Aviation was still compass and stuff back in World War One. So
I know when radar get invented.
Yeah.
Why would I know that?
What are you going to use to launch a wait, in World War One, what are you going to use to launch a sound wave to bounce off of stuff?
What do you mean launch a sound wave?
That's how radar works.
I know, but
you're launching a wave off of stuff, and when it bounces back, that's how you know it's positioned. Like, what technology would have existed in 1914?
Well, I feel like the point you're pedantically trying to make right now is that the satellite for radar. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, not a satellite, but just the technology that would be required in the processing and stuff. Like, I don't even think radar was around in World War II.
Yeah, but that's just like I didn't know that technology did not exist at that time. Like, you're saying, well, how could they do it? Well, clearly, I just assumed that they'd made the technology already. Yeah. I don't know.
I gotta find out. No, I'm gonna be vastly wrong.
I don't know. You make it sound like there's some sort of big cannon that shoots out sound waves. I'm pretty sure it's a bit more intricate than that.
Yes, but no. Yes, but no. When was radar?
I was just making a comment that there was a joke in the trailer about, Steve not expecting radar to be a thing. And I was like, oh, I guess radar didn't exist in World War One. And apparently Matt thinks that's so common knowledge that I'm silly for even.
Well, I'm also a history nerd, so I also, Oh, my computer's acting up. There we go. We're gonna find out.
In about 50 minutes, yes.
Yeah. Oh wow, so I was way off. It was first practical radar system was produced in 1935, and by 1939, England had established a chain of radar stations along its south and east coast. So it was the Brits that first did it, which makes sense given the state of the world in the 1930s.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
World War One is still weird for me with Wonder Woman. Like, it's such a different war than World War II. So, they made it work. So we'll see how it works in, 70 years later.
Yeah.
Now.
I still don't buy this. It's not a sequel nonsense. It's clearly a sequel.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, because even watching this trailer and reading that this week that Jenkins has said it's really not a sequel. I'm like, well, it definitely feels like a sequel. So
this feels like some sort of creator auteur technicality that we're talking about here.
Pedro Pascal as Max Lord, still not what I would have expected, but he seems to be having fun with the role, and I'm just a fan of that dude. And Nick Connor, he's in The Mask most, right? And on Mandalorian.
Connor muted us.
That mostly a stunt. Damn it.
Connor muted us because he doesn't want to hear us about the trailer. Because he's, despite the fact that he's on a podcast to talk about these things, he's sticking his heels out and saying, "No, I'm not doing it."
All right. Well, I'll just ask him when he comes in. Anyways, I'm a big fan of Pedro Pascal. So.
Yeah. So there is in terms of panels, there's a couple of surprise panels that might lead to some comic book news. Although apparently there's a second part of Fandome now in like a week or two, which might actually mean a lot of the comic book stuff doesn't happen till then. I know that right now, Connor mentioned the Gotham Knights thing. I guess because the Warner Brothers Montreal announcement is basically already happened. There's stuff coming up. There's various movie panels. There's obviously a Justice League Snyder Cut panel and all the rest of it. It's mostly TV, movies, and video games, though. But there's a
one of our Twitter followers looked at the Gotham Knights and said, "Oh, I can't wait to play this game except as Red Hood." So I was like, "Yes, that's one of our people."
There is a Black Adam panel though, and The Rock was teasing the outfit this week, so maybe that's finally starting to move forward.
Yeah, and they're thinking they're going to announce the casting of Hawkman, which is a Hawk fan now. I'm excited to see who they would pick.
Please not Blandy McBlanderson, who you said at one point.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Was it Army Hammer?
No, I like Army Hammer. What's his name? He's in Pacific Rim, first one.
Oh, Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah.
Oh no!
God, please not him.
I feel
he has
can
no
play
charisma.
Carter.
He can't play anyone.
No,
I take that back. He can play anyone to a perfectly acceptable level. He cannot go above and beyond for anything.
You're saying he wasn't a good King Arthur in that King Arthur movie we like?
I like that movie in spite of all of its many flaws, including him.
I would just like to point out, when Matt says we, he means Matt and Connor. I am taking no part in this King Arthur liking.
Well, it's Guy Ritchie, man. It's Guy Ritchie doing is exactly what you want it to be, unlike Aladdin. Like
it is unashamedly Guy Ritchie, and it's
it's with swords.
It's. Can you think of what a King Arthur movie would look like if Guy Ritchie made it? Yes. Well, there you go. It exists.
Yeah, and it's something you want it to be. With Charlie Hunnam as King Arthur, who I enjoy.
Looking at the schedule for this fandom, there's a hell of a lot of encores where they're repeating the same things again.
It's probably because they just split the thing in two. Because obviously they did have a lot scheduled for over the full day, and they claim the reason for it was that there was a lot of overlapping panels, and you had to see it live, sort of thing. And people were complaining that they couldn't do all of them, so they've split in two so that it's more spread out, so there's not two things on at the same time or too many things on at the same time. So I guess the purpose of this means that, okay, we have all these spare slots now that we've got to fill, so just repeats.
Okay. So hopefully we'll have some juicy news next week to talk about, maybe some Endless Winter stuff, since that's what they've been teasing for December. Yeah, hopefully a couple of books to replace some of those ones that have been cancelled in the solicits. But okay, there you go. That's your fandom talk and some movie talk, I guess. Which we don't always talk about here. Sometimes there's stuff that's interesting enough that we'll talk about it. Sometimes we're just like, nah, let's just focus on the comic books. But we do have some questions this week. We have questions because it is a lighter week for books, and I did put the feelers out. I'll take one from the email first. From Emil Kilday. Couple of questions here. I mean, one of them is a bit more of a common question, so I'm going to skip that one and just go with the second question here. But what do you listen to while reading comics? Movie soundtracks, orchestral scores, the never-ending voices of despair screaming in your head that you'll never really be good enough.
Usually when I'm at work, it's my coworkers that are trying to talk over me reading. And I know how that sounds, but I feel like sometimes when they see me pick up my iPad or a comic, they decide they're going to talk louder. That's usually what it is.
I usually like silence when I'm reading. Sometimes I will use orchestral music to drone out the sound of if there's anything infecting my soundscape. The one thing I definitely cannot do is read when I hear voices. If I hear people talking, I just can't read at all. It's a complete no-go.
Could not read with my coworkers then.
Yeah, no, I could not.
So I got the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips pulp this week, finally, because it was delayed for whatever reason, and I'm trying to dig into it. And every time I pick it up to read it, someone asks me a question. So finally I just put it away, because there was no way I was reading it yesterday at work. But yeah, I've tried to do music, but the music I listen to is not conducive to reading.
I'm really not that fussy. I will have sometimes silence. Sometimes there'll be some sporting event on in the background.
Yeah.
Other times there will be music, which can range from score, orchestral, classical, metal, literally anything, whatever just happens to press play on my Spotify. It doesn't distract me at all.
Yeah, baseball is good to read too, because you don't really need to pay attention. That's a good one, and it's usually pretty mellow.
Part of it is I do have tinnitus, which means that there is a noise at all times, regardless.
Whoa. Tinnitus? You pronounce it tinnitus?
Tinnitus.
Yeah, tinnitus.
Tinnitus. I don't really care.
I understand what he meant there.
I've literally never heard anyone say it that way.
It's a very common British way of saying it.
Never heard it.
Anytime I pronounce something wrong now, I'm just going to say that's a very British way of saying things.
Well, I'm sorry, the British way of saying it then, if that's the proper way, is stupid.
I'm not saying it's the proper way, I'm just saying it's a common way. I don't know if it's a proper way.
Is this from years of music? Or what? Is it just a thing?
Terrible not wearing ear protection at a lot of gigs when I was younger. Being next to a snare drum while testing the sounds probably doesn't do it any favors over many occasions. But yeah, basically that. So there's always a noise anyway. So it kind of makes no difference to me if it's music or if it's that.
It's a paradox. Basically, he has tinnitus because it's karma for the way he pronounces tinnitus. So it's just a never-ending loop. So Emil just finished up saying, happy podcasting as always. You're a bright spot in my week. Love from Denmark. So we have a fan from Denmark, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, buddy.
So over to Twitter though. Do I have that one? Why do I have it open? It's just a mail browser. Hold on. There we go. We switcheroo. So I think we have to take this question very seriously. Spend a lot of time on it. Right. This is from Sean Walsh 747. If you could choose to remove either Jason Todd or your co-host Connor from existence, who would you choose and why Connor? Now, this is a very deep question. It's a very philosophical question because I think he's right. Ultimately, it would be Connor, but why? Why Connor instead of... Because Red Hood's fictional, right? I mean, surely there's no...
Here's the thing, though. Me and Connor have bonded over the last couple weeks over hockey, so now I have someone else to talk about hockey with, so I'm not getting rid of that. I have your back there, Connor.
Oh, thanks.
So
hockey did something good for me.
Yeah, also, Jason Todd sucks. So, yeah. My hatred of Jason Todd outweighs.
My response to this question is basically just that gif of Larry David sort of going...
Yeah.
Quality question, quite frankly. Best question we've ever had. I stand
you
by
have
it.
a very low bar, apparently.
He does.
No. Okay, from @Res1980. What are 3 new books you want to see with potential creative teams? And this is obviously a very common question that can come up at any point, but I think right now it's particularly potent because we're on the verge of new books being announced. So I guess what fills the sweet spots right now, and how quickly...
The obvious one for me and Matt is JSA by Venditti. Maybe even just have Pasarin on art.
Yeah. There for that one. That one's easy.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, I'd read a GSA book. I don't know if I'm necessarily in love with the idea of Venditti doing it.
But see, Venditti nailed the Freedom Fighters. So if he can nail the Freedom Fighters, I have zero doubt he can nail the JSA. So...
I will also be a lot less upset about Hawkman coming to an end if these last 3 issues are just setting up a JSA run from him.
Oh, God, that issue last week was so good.
I was furious at that last page because I'm like, no, you can't give me this tease as the next part of the book and then be like, oh, by the way, there's only 3 issues and then we're cancelled.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
Also, you got to work Tom Taylor in there. So I want a Tom Taylor Superman book. Action Comics in particular, as in he could play with a rotating cast.
That would be lovely.
I mean, that would be great, but I mean, I don't think Bendis is ending just now, and it's not really a new book either. So,
well, I mean, we know Bendis was on his, the back half end of his run anyway.
Yeah.
And that was a good few months ago now. So by the time they're announcing this for again another few months in the future, why not?
I don't think so.
All right, fine. Then I want Tom Taylor Adventures of Superman. Boom, done.
Sure, okay, yeah, fine. You want us to... I mean, I don't really want another Superman book or another Batman book. I think if there's that I want, it's not either of those two.
Superman book.
Yeah.
Well, of course you do, because you just don't like Bendis. But what I don't want really is I don't really want any of the big three. Like, I mean, I know Wonder Woman only has one book, but like the big three, let's do other things. Let's do other characters. Tom Taylor on just about anything is probably fine. With me.
Tom Taylor Flash book done.
I'll take a Tom Taylor Flash book. Top Taylor Flash book.
That's my other go-to. And then Jody Hauser needs to be up to something with Rachel Stott. Let's give them what do you want to give them? You don't want to just give them one of the girl characters. So, wonder what they do on Green Lantern.
Maybe.
Give me a rotating Green Lantern book.
That said, I mean,
Hauser and Stott. That'd be a lot of fun, I think.
There was rumors of Cass being Batgirl again, or there's been hints of Cass being Batgirl again. I mean, honestly, Hauser and Stott on
kind of along those lines. You know what I'd be down for? Having a Robin book again.
Depends which Robin.
You can do it as a Damian book, or you can do it as Red Robin.
Yeah, seeing what the future of DC is looking like with lesser books, I can definitely see them going to that style of book to where it's not just one character. I mean, you'll have your Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, right? But I can see the other titles being more rotating, where kind of like the digital titles are, to where someone has an idea for a story and they get to play it. So, Tom Taylor has let's say a Jason Todd story, right? Because that's the one person that I would read Jason Todd from. Why not throw that in a Robin book? Or a Gotham book in general. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think the more likely thing though is that because numbers as they go up sell less and less, so they're probably going to just do a series of minis. So it would be
yeah,
kind of like how Deceased is essentially an ongoing of minis. I feel like that's probably more likely what they do now, so they can renumber it to one with every arc.
And I guess that's fine too. And you could have some overarching continuity that, like Deceased, that you don't necessarily need to read them all, but if you do, you get a better feel for it, right? Or even White Knight at that point, how they're doing that. I think really that is the future on that one. So
I'll give you one.
I think rotating.
Give me Green Arrow and Black Canary by Chip Zdarsky.
I will take anything by Zdarsky right now.
Art by Schmidt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zdarsky and Schmidt. I think that would be really fun, cartoony kind of stuff. This is the first time I've read an actual Chip Zdarsky book. Was this week?
Really?
Well, it was a book. It was a story.
Yeah, a story.
He is rather excellent.
Yeah. So
now that he's dipped the toe in the DC door, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I've been meaning to get to Daredevil, but I'm so behind on everything else, and I'm still reading West Coast Avengers. That's my right before bed. I'll read 2 stories and then pass out, especially after a late.
That was good, man.
Late hockey game. Oh no, I'm loving it. The big monsters and everything, and Kate turning into a hawk girl.
Jeff.
Jeff the Land Shark. No, I don't. I thought the Land Sharks was.
I thought that was pretty early.
Yeah, I thought it was a start.
I'm like 4 or 5 issues in, because again, it's 2 issues at a time right before I pass out.
Yeah, but there's only like 12 issues.
It's less. There's only 10. There's only 10 issues.
Yeah, I thought Jeff the Land Shark was like issue like 2 or 3 at most.
No, we had the Land Sharks in the very first issue, but so far no Jeff.
Okay, I mean, you're reading it now. I'll take your word for it. But
he had such a monumental impact in less issues than we thought.
Yeah. Also, if Kelly Thompson wants to come over and do anything at DC,
oh god, yes,
as well, I'm there for it, because I've yet to read something by Kelly Thompson that I haven't enjoyed. So
yes, I even liked her Gambit and Rogue book, and I don't like those characters. Well, I definitely like Gambit.
Yeah, I should read that, because I do like Rogue. I'm a fan of Rogue.
That book taught me and Pete so much about Marvel continuity.
Yeah,
there was so much stuff that Rick brought up that I'd never heard of before.
You're like, wait, what? This is a thing?
Oh yeah, wasn't there 2 characters who were sisters? And we're like, wait, what? They're related?
Wait, which ones?
I don't remember.
I don't remember, but I remember they were at like a funeral or a wedding, and there was like it just casually mentioned that 2 X-Men characters were sisters, and I was like, wait, what?
I bet you I knew that.
Maybe you did. I don't know. But
no, anyways, yeah, Kelly Thompson and the artist on I'm trying to blank right now, that worked on Hawkeye, and it looks like they worked on West Coast Avengers with Thompson. I'm a fan of that artist too.
No, that was good in that book.
Yeah, it's a great book.
I guess it's interesting we're starting to like talk more. I mean, because we weren't asked like who we take from other things. We were just naturally started poaching people from Marvel because we kind of want, I guess, some fresh blood. Kind of.
You want new talent. Like a lot of the names at DC, we've seen what they can do. We're excited. Okay, if they stick them on another book, we'll be happy for it. But it's not. We don't really have a lot of the big superstar names right now that we haven't seen on a lot of books already. Whereas with the Marvel talent here, we haven't seen them do any of these things, and that's more interesting.
Yeah, so like I love Greg Rucka, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I necessarily want that's new from him.
But
right?
yeah,
like the last book was fine, you know.
Anything that they announce from Rucka, you'll take it. But there's nothing like, oh, I need this from Rucka. I've never seen Rucka do this.
Right.
He's done most of it.
I'd like to see Fraction on some more DC characters after Jimmy Olsen and reading Adventure Man, just because they're so different. And I wasn't familiar with Fraction before Jimmy Olsen that much. Like I had read Immortal Iron Fist because it's one of my favorite stories, but that's him and Brubaker splitting that. So there's a definite feel to it. But yeah, so I wouldn't mind seeing what Fraction would do with a lot of these characters too. But at the same time, you don't want to just keep pulling all these big names, you know, because I feel like there's a life cycle almost that they do superhero stuff, then they go do like Lemire does, right? And then they go do creator owned, and then they work their way back to superheroes. Like it's a cycle.
Yeah.
So,
although notably, when they come back though, it's like these prestige minis, which, you know, for the most part, it's working out quite nicely because most of them have been really good. But
I want to see what some of the younger generation's doing too, because that's what, you know, that's where we get a lot of these names. Like I remember Lemire was a name that was relatively well known, you know, and now it's like, oh, this guy's doing Green Arrow in the New 52.
Yeah, what's that young up and coming guy? Yeah, Dan Jurgen's going to be up to next. Let's see what he's going to
do. Which book is he going to have that we're like, still not an ending date?
I know, Batman Beyond just won't die. Yes? You
were looking at the schedule for Fandome, right?
I was earlier, yes.
Did you happen to spot a deceased panel?
I don't know if I noticed one. Why?
Because Tom Taylor's tweeting saying checking out Fandome. Join us for the mostly deceased panel with him, Trevor Hairston, Abernathy, a bunch of others that I don't recognize the Twitter handles immediately.
Mostly deceased. What would it be called there if it's just mostly deceased?
It says talking deceased, Suicide Squad, and Injustice. But I don't see any panel that fits that description.
It could be part of the surprise one, I guess. But I mean, it'd be weird for me to like spoil like that half of it's just going to be this stuff. But what's up, Matt?
Alex Ross just posted a coming soon Teen Titans image, and it's the classic. It's the classic new Teen Titans lineup.
Oh baby!
Speaking of Teen Titans, I need Stephen Byrne's Teen Titans book like now.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you too, Connor. He just posted a Wallace.
I've just seen it. That's what reminded me.
Yeah,
that is literally next to the Tom Taylor tweet on my feed.
Yeah,
I don't know thing. That way I see this Alex Ross thing.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's on my Twitter somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's on your
It came up 9 minutes ago, so it's. If you can't find it, I'll send it in the chat.
I'll just search for Alex Ross. Yeah, there it is.
The Batgirl costume in that Gotham Knights game is the Burnside looking one. Damn it.
It's not quite.
It's kind of, I mean, it's
that color scheme, but it's not really that costume.
It's closer to that than anything else. Although Nightwing's looking a bit bulky. All the dudes are looking a bit bulkier than I feel like they should be, but whatever. Where's this Alex Ross thing? Oh, here we go. I see it.
That is gorgeous.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
That's it. Hashtag coming soon. Coming soon.
Well, we knew he was teased, because remember we talked about it, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where he accidentally teased something on his Instagram and then had it deleted immediately.
Right. Yeah. So I'm wondering if he's doing a new thing about the Teen Titans with someone else that he usually works with.
Who are these hands kind of reaching in? The green.
I don't know,
fingers.
but they're green.
I don't know. Obviously,
Beast Boy is suspiciously missing in that image, but he could have been cut off.
Yeah, because this is just. It's worth mentioning. This image that he's posted is very just like a small section of something. But it could be Beast Boy transformed into some sort of big gorilla or something like that. I don't know.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. But no, that is intriguing. Some sort of miniseries with Alex Ross art, which is kind of a rare thing. So it's always special.
Yeah, because we did speculate this would be the thing with Wade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure we'll find out in the next day or so.
Hey, I'll take a 4-issue mini with Wade
Something.
and Alex Ross.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
So you guys heard about how bulky they look in Gotham Knights?
Yeah.
In Red Hood looking like John Cena. Like, that's a bulky dude, man. Nightwing's a little bit more, like aerialist build. But yeah.
I can't click in the trailer to see it just because the audio played. Copyright.
I'll send you a tweet with just the images of the character designs.
I've seen one from someone with the Red Hood, Robin, Batgirl, and Nightwing on it.
Yeah. That's pretty. Yeah, I don't think the Batgirl one is really the Burnside costume. It's that color scheme, but other than that, it's not.
It
really.
Looks more like the newer one with purple.
Is she missing a cape? I don't see a cape.
No, she had a cape in the gameplay.
Did she? Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't mind the Nightwing design. He just looks a bit bulky. The chest.
Yeah, like he doesn't look as bulky as Red Hood does.
Oh, Red
Hood
Red.
looks like he's tapped that venom.
Red Hood should be voiced by Tom Hardy in this.
Yeah.
Hey, if Red Hood had Tom Hardy Bane voice, I'd like Red Hood a whole lot more.
Yeah. I mean, if they want to do a Red Hood thing and have it be Tom Hardy, I'm not mad either. I mean, it's under his prerequisite that they have to cover his face for whatever role he does. So.
Yeah. No, that's good. We actually kind of dipped into another question there by talking about who to bring from other places. But I believe the other question was kind of not focused on Marvel, though. It was more about taking people from indies and Image and stuff like that.
See, my problem is I don't read enough of those to know.
Mm-hmm.
What's the specific wording of the question, or are we just going with that generic vagueness that you just rolled off?
I don't remember what the question was, this one. I'm saying this from memory.
Oh, you don't have it in front of you like all the others? Oh,
no.
Okay. Can I say Kieran Gillen? He does mostly indie work these days.
Can I say please not, never, thank you?
I would like to see what a Kieran Gillen, like Damian era's heroes. It's like Damian John, like younger than his Young Avengers, just to see what Gillen and McKelvey, because you got to bring in McKelvey for that too.
That would be the ideal scenario, yes.
Because I want to know what a Kieran Gillen Damian sounds like, right? Because his kid
probably
Loki,
witty as shit.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of tit like the tisk, right?
Yeah, a lot of how Tomasi kind of wrote him a lot about that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind that at all, because I liked Young Avengers. I didn't love it, but it was a good read.
I still think, Matt, Once and Future is your book.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it.
All right, ask Stanley Coda. Do you think with the potential New Gods movie, if we see it, I mean, it's supposed to be happening.
I mean, it's the Ava DuVernay one, right?
Yeah. Do you think with the potential New Gods movie, we'll see more New Gods stuff in the comics post Death Metal? Well, Snyder's run is cosmic. It doesn't really focus on the New Gods all that much. Honestly, my instinct to this would to be say maybe, but I'm not expecting it, because I feel like, for the most part, movies and TV shows recently haven't really resulted in comic books doing anything with those characters. Like, think about the fact that Supergirl's going into season 6 of a TV show. There's no Supergirl book right now. Doom Patrol just had its book cancelled. In fact, there was a great post on Twitter I saw a couple of weeks ago saying that all the movies and TV shows we know are going to be at Fandome, or all the no, it wasn't movies, just TV shows. All the TV shows that are going to be at Fandome, and only like one show, which was The Flash, had an ongoing comic book. Every other one didn't. So
the Supergirl fans felt pretty shafted as well, because every other CW show got like a full panel to itself, and Supergirl's the only one that didn't. Now, apparently, it's just because Melissa Benoist is pregnant, and so didn't really feel up to doing the panel. But they were like, you couldn't have done it, with other people from the cast.
Yeah, what about our new love interest that we never got to see the payoff to because we bailed?
Which love interest was that again?
Remember the guy who was supposed to be married at first, but it turned out he was actually undercover. He was
not journalist guy.
Yeah, he's very British accent.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
That was terrible. Yeah.
I regret nothing about bailing.
Oh, man, that bums me out.
It's, do you know, actually, if you had told me back in season 1 of Supergirl that they were going to do Crisis on Infinite Earths and it was going to bring Lex Luthor into the main like show and back from the dead and the Earth was going to be merged with Flash, and if you told me that even with that I was still going to go, nah, I'm good, I'm done, that I would be like, what, are you kidding me? But nah, they sucked the life out of me over, years.
Yeah, I haven't even gone and watched Crisis, and I feel terrible about it. But
honestly, Matt, I don't think you need to. That's a sad part of it. I even feel the need to say
I want to just because it's Crisis, right?
It worked in a weird way for me and Pete as a good conclusion to those shows.
Yeah, it was like a good bite for us.
Yeah. Like, right, okay, we got a Crisis. We hit the reboot. Right, we're all good. We're out of here.
Do you know what I think I'm at the point now where there's so much comic book media, right, movies and TV from both big companies that I'm at the point now where it has to actually be good. I'm not just happy that it exists. Now it has to actually be a good representation of what the thing is and also have a reasonable quality to it.
You know what? I don't even need it to necessarily be a good representation. I just need it to be good. Like,
that's fair.
If it's good enough quality on its own, that okay, it fudges some of the things. It's not the best representation.
That can be true for me.
Show a good movie, I can still enjoy it.
That can be true for me too, depending on what the differences are. It's kind of case by case, but at that point, but no, it needs to be good now. I can't just be like, I'm happy a show exists that will reference things that I know from comics. It has to be good now.
I had issues with that, when I was watching Flash, and I didn't particularly feel that first version of Captain Cold was the Captain Cold I like. And someone was like, "Oh, well, if Captain Cold, you should be happy." I was like, "No, you shouldn't just be happy that it exists.
No,
you should want it to be close." And that's what I always give Marvel credit for, is that, from my understanding, they're not exactly spot on, but they're close enough. Chris Evans as Captain America is pretty representative.
You bring up Captain Cold there, played by Whitworth Miller. I just happened to watch all the Resident Evil movies in the last couple of weeks for reasons which I don't want to get into, but he plays Chris Redfield from the games in one of the movies, and it might actually be worse than his Captain Cold in terms of like just how much of a butchered, I mean, admittedly part of that's on the script, which doesn't really even strive to be the character,
but still, I mean, he is a lot better on Legends. When they bring him back to Legends on that season, he's okay.
He's okay, but the show notably got better though after he was axed.
I think his best appearances are the kind of return points in Legends. There's one or two later that were legitimately good and played. Once the show had actually knew what it was doing, it was at its doing its best stuff, and those were his best appearances as Cold, for sure. Yep.
But so you shouldn't just be, and I think this should go with most things, you shouldn't be happy just because something like that exists. You should want it to be good. And that's, again, like I brought up Titans earlier. That's why I haven't watched Titans, because it didn't look, from the first trailer, it didn't look like something I was going to be happy with.
And it's not even just that. It's not just like you should be not just be happy because something exists. What makes it even worse, though, I think, is something that has really started to irk me over the past 5 years, is that if there is an attempt at something you like from a comic book and it is completely shambles and doesn't work, you're looking at years before they try most things again. I mean, sure, Batman may get tried again in a couple of years, but
or
most
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Right?
But most things take a while before they'll try them again. And an even worse case scenario is that it's terrible, but it's successful, and then all of a sudden, that's the version you're stuck with for years and years.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess I should stop complaining about being a Superman fan. Like, the last really great Superman movie was the original, unless you're counting the Donner cut, which I really don't do, because it's.
I think the vanilla version of 2 is still a solid movie. It's not as good as the first one, but
but so because then I wouldn't, I getting stuck with the Superman Returns era, I guess wouldn't have been ideal either. But yeah, and I am gonna end up watching at least the first episode of the new Superman and Lois show, wherever that airs.
Unfortunately, I suspect so will me and Pete.
It's so weird, though, because I have very little intention of sticking with it, which is weird, given...
It would have to blow us out of the water, really, right?
Yeah, but I'm going to check it out out of more of a curiosity, because it is Superman, and from what I've seen of them, I'm okay with that. Like, they're fine. So...
Yeah. Simply...
Give me a good movie. Stop being cowards, Warner Brothers. there's a need.
Simply existing isn't good enough, and to sum up the actual question, no, I don't expect a lot of New God stuff in the comics.
Just to actually go on to the question itself, honestly, New God stuff doesn't, as a rule, perform that well. It never has since the original Kirby stuff. That stuff sold on Kirby's name alone. Every time they've tried it since then, it's kind of failed. Mr. Miracle has been the exception to the rule.
And again, that was
because it's not about the New Gods. It's about something else.
But again, that was like a big creator, prestige project. That's what makes stuff like New Gods work and sell well, is that kind of caliber.
Yes.
Yeah. But even then, I don't even think like the Kirby stuff back in the 60s, 70s, like it was selling based off of Kirby. But the reason that so many people love it is because it kind of became a cult classic kind of vibe.
Yeah, it wasn't a juggernaut at the time. It just introduced so much. Kirby's world building was next level.
The people that would go on to write comics, it was like what they say about I think it was the Talking Heads, that everyone that was at that Talking Heads show in New York in the 70s went on to start a band that was moderately successful.
Yeah,
right?
It was kind of a comic creator's comic.
Yeah, and so I feel the same, that the people that would go on to make the comics and set the tone for the comics we enjoy all were into the Kirby stuff. And that's cool, but I feel like you have to be Jack Kirby to really make that stuff work, because it is insane when you look at it. When I try to explain the New Gods to my wife, it's very difficult. Like, you have to get the mythology and science fiction, and it's kind of like Thor, but not really.
His world building was something else that no one really is managed.
He had Transylvane, a vampire living planet, at one point.
That is possibly the best issue of Jimmy Olsen in existence.
Yeah. So Transylvane,
it's so good.
All right. I think we'll make that the last question. There was a few more, but thank you to everyone who sent them in, and we will get on with comic books then, I guess. I don't think next week has is late, so I don't know if we'll need questions, but I'll find out at the end when I actually look at the list.
It's we have a really big book out next week.
Okay,
that's probably gonna take up a lot.
We should
of time.
have news to talk about.
In theory, in theory.
Yeah, we have a lot of books next week. Just counting one major one, which I can't believe Pete's not picking up on. Another oversized book. So yeah.
Well, I've been told that I'm not picking up on. Hold on.
There's a really massive book out next week that's been years in the making.
Oh, Three Jokers. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then there's the question, The Death of Stage 4.
Ooh.
Which, I think that was originally supposed to be this week and got delayed, which is kind of annoying given the size of next week in comparison.
These things happen, It's a ongoing process. All right. Cool. That's that's questions and news and speculation and movie trailers and I don't know whatever else we talked about in that last shambles of 50 minutes. But Death Metal Guidebook issue 1. We'll just say the creators as we're going through because it's obviously different stories. The main one, of course, is Snyder, Tynion, and Williamson writing. And this first story is kind of I won't say super important because I don't necessarily think you need to read it, but it is a nice little bit of supplemental material, sort of explaining how the world got the way it was before the start of Death Metal, and also sets up a little bit for the Justice League arc that's coming, starting issue 53. Yeah,
it's really what you missed while we were in between issues.
Yeah.
And it's perfect for something like this. It is a guidebook. That it doesn't go necessarily too in-depth, but it goes just enough that I'd be like, okay, well, that's why this is this way. And it kind of... And if you are reading everything else, so like the last... the issue from 2 weeks ago, the Dark Knights book, where we were introduced to the Batman who is Gotham.
I think
that pops up here.
It does, yeah. I think what I'll say about these one-shot tie-ins so far is that I feel like neither of them have been necessary, but I think both of them have been a little bit of extra context around some things. I think the last one felt a little bit more useful now that city popped up in this. Now, when it mentioned, this city that was sentient popped up in place of Gotham, I was like, oh, okay, that's nice to have some previous context for that and get a real idea of what this world is. They're kind of, through all these one-shots, they're really giving us a lot of what the world is.
Yeah, I actually much preferred this one. Even like this first story, which I think is probably my least favorite in this book, feels more relevant than the equivalent in that first one shot where it was just like a recap.
Yeah.
Yeah, this feels like there was a mission statement of we're gonna fill in and we're gonna have these little character moments versus the other one, which is a collection of Batman stories from the Dark Worlds.
I'm kind of in a sort of like, I think balancing it about the same in the sense that I think I agree the opening story in this is more relevant than the last one. I think I maybe preferred some of the small stories more in the last one than this one, but I still like some of the ones in this.
I think I like most of these stories more, and also I like the variety that we're not just stuck with Batman stories or or dark Batman stories. This is all the various things.
I was questioning last week that they felt the need to shove in that Lex Luthor reveal at the end, and it's just kind of funny that this one shot the following week followed on from it. So I guess that's good planning in that sense.
Yeah,
Lex looking suspiciously like Destiny of the Endless. The big flowing green cloak, also Spectre-esque, don't get me wrong, but the book as well. And I'm like, the way he talks about the book as well, it sounds a lot like Destiny's book. And
that's probably by design. If Tynion, Snyder, and Williamson,
they might well be doing some of that. Like, it's obviously the book is slightly different. It's not the same looking book. It's not chained to him like it is Destiny. But just the way he talks about it, they talks about, this contains all the secrets, and the way he just looks visually, it reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah, it's basically Lex narrating. We see the world change. We see the Dark Batman kind of go after various heroes. How some of the Justice League fell in combat. How Wonder Woman sort of like surrendered to save the Amazons, and what was the other hero that did the same for someone else? But like
Aquaman maybe.
It was Aquaman for Atlantis, yeah, which makes sense. So, how the other heroes got captured, and it shows you like the Sinestro Batman came after John. The idea that he's been training, they've all been training to fight their counterparts. So we see like a Hawk Batman and stuff like that.
There's one just using a flamethrower on Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, there's no counterpart for Martian Manhunter. He's just a dude with a flamethrower.
Hey,
I do like anytime I can get Monkey doing Green Lantern iconography, I'm there for it. So that page with the Sinestro Batman. Or the Sinestro Corps Batman.
You say page, you mean panel.
Panel, sorry. On that page. Yeah. And I really did like the, Barry coming through to save Batman, through there.
Yeah, he's running from like a horde of evil Batman, and he's just jumping off a building and getting caught by the Flash. No, there's a fun little sequence. And the tease, of course, at the end is that Luthor says, I can't fight this alone, I have to build a team. And Lobo's like, well, what team are you talking about, Chief? Is that I need to put my Legion back together, so we get a panel of, his team, and it says to be continued in Justice League 53. And I think that's did a good job of making me go, I'm actually kind of excited for that arc now, if that's what that arc's going to be.
Yeah, it makes it feel like this is a continuation. It's not just, an event for the sake of event. It is we're going to have to harness Doom to save the universe.
Yeah.
And I like that. Multiverse.
Yeah. It wasn't like a knockout the park story by any means. There is definitely some elements to it that feels like it's a little bit paddy at the start, as Lex is just kind of monologuing before the stuff actually starts happening. But it felt like it was relevant. It gave me some extra context with some stuff, and it successfully teased the tie-in arc from Justice League. I mean, art's not bad, of course, throughout. I'm sure Matt loved the reshaping of the continents into the giant bat symbol.
If the mission is to make me hate it, then yes.
I think you are supposed to hate it. It's the evil Batman doing it. It's supposed to be a terrible thing.
And I'm feeling like people are missing this. I'm seeing comments on Twitter and stuff, and I feel like people are missing the statement of because Batman is bad.
It's it's so. Well, Batman himself is not bad. All these other Batmen are bad.
No. Because Batman, the concept that is the Batman who laughs, right. Because Bruce would not redo the continents into a bat symbol.
Although,
at least I would hope not.
This does upset me that DC is not owned by Universal, because then one day we can't have a movie that's the Universal logo, except that the planet is the bat symbol.
Yeah,
we'll find a way.
I really want it.
Give it time. If it's not Warner Brothers, it'll be Disney. So
True. So that was the first story. So I mean, it is a tie-in. I don't think it's like absolutely needed, and I think there's maybe an argument to be made that this should have been a single issue. I mean, not that I'm saying that I don't think any of the stories after this are worth reading, but more just so that it drives up the price by having all these extra little stories afterwards. When this could have just been like a 20-page one shot for a normal price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one felt important enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I think if that was all I was getting for the regular price, I probably would have been disappointed, because it does feel a little bit like the exposition lesson, the background, and less of a story.
Sure.
So in that context, I like it just being part of this larger thing where the others are actually little stories, whereas this is just the information.
And I think, some of those stories in the last one, like, some of them felt a bit more relevant than others at the time, and now because the city popped up here, I feel like, maybe a lot of those other little things they introduced, they made a point of introducing, maybe not the Bat Baby, but like the other ones will be relevant at some point, in some small way at least. And likewise, we get this Harley Quinn story next from Chip Zdarsky and Carrie Randolph on the art, and this was just kind of interesting from Zdarsky's doing a DC story. This is kind of cool because I really like his Daredevil, and it's this Mad Max Harley Quinn fighting a giant mutant version of Boomerang, who does get completely bitten in half by a giant hyena. So
yeah, I do like this. This is the story of her, hyena named George.
Yes.
Right. Like that was pretty cool.
Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What I will say, just as Matt's fixing his mic there, is that there's a really awkward reference to Tiger King, and I sort of groaned at it, but then the editor's note made me love it.
Yeah.
Because the editor's note said, editor note, this story takes place when people like Tiger King. And that made me laugh. I was like, okay, you know what, you saved it with the editor's note.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what were you saying, Matt?
Well, no, I love how cartoony it is, and it fits with Zdarsky. I know he didn't do the art, but with the way that his brain works from stuff that I've, I read some Sex Criminals, so I am familiar with this. Yeah, his art style enough that this felt very Zdarsky from Carrie Randolph, so that was really good. Yeah. Actually,
what's funny about Zdarsky with me is I had a bad first impression, because the first thing I read from Zdarsky was issue 1 of his, I think it was the Spectacular Spider-Man, and it wasn't terrible, but I thought it was really wordy, and it sort of left a sort of bad taste in my mouth, thinking that I didn't like Zdarsky. And I tried his Daredevil and thought it was amazing, and I've loved everything I've read of his Daredevil, and I've read maybe like 3 trades worth or whatever.
Zdarsky can be wordy, and often he does wordy in a way that he just rambles into jokes.
Sure.
Yeah.
That can really work. It's like you feel like, what's the point of this? It's just going on and on and on, and then the joke comes in. It's just enough where it's still funny.
Yeah,
I mean maybe on a second try, I may not feel that way about that issue of Spider-Man or with the rest of that run, but Daredevil and then this story here, like I like this. I mean, I don't like it as much as Daredevil's fantastic. Like it's really
one of the best books Marvel has going right now. It's like a top 3 Marvel book.
Yeah. It's basically it's that Captain America and Hulk all fighting for supremacy. Let's be honest.
I'm behind on all of them.
So am I at this point.
To be fair, I'm like 2 months behind on all my Marvel books.
That said, though, they did take a 3-month break, so I'm not as behind as I was. I thought I was.
Yeah, that's good. But even
when they came back, it was only every 2 weeks they were publishing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also with my new appreciation of Harley Quinn too, this feels really in the character. Like it feels like I feel like this Harley and the Harley and Batman are similar. Like there's not a big, dip between them. Because especially when he chomps when the hyena chomps Boomerang
and it does the anime cartoony.
Yeah,
I love the art and that's kind of the way it's switched.
Yeah, really well. Because that makes the next panel where he chomps the head and it's in silhouette with red and black. It makes that pop even more.
Yeah, and given that Boomerang technically just died, I think that confirms that when they fix everything, deaths don't necessarily have to stick if we get them in this story.
I'm shocked.
I think this outright says it.
Yeah. I don't know. This was a fun story. I'm liking again this version of Harley. It's kind of the version that was a lot of the Palmiotti and Connor stuff. It's the version that's in the Harley Quinn show. It seems to be permeating to be the Harley right now, and I'm okay with that. It's a lot of fun to read. And again, this is the version that's been popping up in Batman.
I mean, could it be that my problem with that Harley Quinn book wasn't the version of Harley, it was the writing?
It's very possible. Maybe you don't like Tommy Icona's writing stuff.
Yeah, now that I've read, I've read Starfire by them that I really enjoyed. And now that I realize that Harley doesn't annoy me, maybe I should revisit that and give it an actual try, I
think if you enjoyed Harley, the take on Harley in the Birds of Prey movie, then I think you'll probably enjoy that run. It's again, very heavily inspired by that run.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Maybe it's not. Oh.
The next story is an Aquaman story called the Umebozu.
There you go, Umebozu.
Umebozu. Becky Cloonan, story and art. Art's very good in this. I will say that. Aquaman's trying to recruit this creature with pitch black, red eyes. Really interesting visual. The Bat Thulu, or whatever it's called. Shows up. Baphomet, there you go. Shows up in the water. I'll admit, I'm having a hard time remembering what the actual point of the story was from memory, and I just read it earlier today, so feel free to fill me in.
It's the fact that Aquaman, the reason he surrendered Atlantis was to save sea life, and that he's going around trying to collect all of these things. So, like, this creature pops up, and he says that if it's from the sea, he can communicate with it. But Baphomet makes him destroy it just to flex his power. And it's, it ends up taking a toll on Arthur.
Yeah, I really like the art in this. I did think Cloonan, obviously Cloonan did both the art and the writing. So, praise her art here. I think her writing here is a little bit overdone, I'd say. Yeah.
This almost could have been a silent story, except for a couple of the stuff in between.
There's a lot of monologuing,
There is. I do really like the art. Shout out to Tamara Bonvillain for the colors. I think they really pop in this story. Like that very first panel with the kind of the purple skies. Just it's so immediately distinct from everything else in the book. Really like that.
Yeah.
And also Arthur's design with the collar and the color scheme. Here for it.
Sure.
So this is based off of a paranormal phenomena from Japan. And then it says, I'm reading through the wiki on it, because, I'm a sucker for folklore. And then it goes into recent sightings. That is as recent as 1971.
Is this kind of like their equivalent of a Loch Ness Monster?
Kind of. Man, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, but it's not as funny as Canada's version of Loch Ness Monster, which is the Ogopogo, which is...
Ogopogo, yeah.
And again, on that, I don't mean in terms of the mythology, because clearly this, it talks about, it's hungry for souls. It has its own mythology, clearly.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the enduring legend, even into the modern day.
In 71, in Okinawa, a fishing boat was on its way to New Zealand to catch tuna when it, in its long line, from something from the sea appeared shaped like a gigantic organism, and the ship's crew called it a monster, creating a big uproar. It had many gray-brown wrinkles on its body, and its eyes are about 15 centimeters in diameter, a collapsed nose, and no mouth to be seen. Half its body was submerged in the murky water, so its whole body could not be ascertained, but it was said to leave a trail. It is said that they got ready to poke it with a harpoon, and the monster disappeared into the sea. So it could have been anything, but the fact that they're claiming, the fishermen are claiming it was one of these, is, a pretty cool take on monsters. And it's not just all about the Dark Batman, right? It's about, even though this is a monster, Arthur having the compassion to want to save it from this, darkness. I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Like I said, the art's really good. The sentiment of the story is really good. I just thought the actual writing, the text was a bit overdone. It's worth mentioning there is pages in between these stories. Usually here you'd have like pin-ups maybe, and like one of these bigger anthology books, but instead here it's kind of like fact stuff. It's like this one, for example, is like a list of locations with a bit of
Yeah, they all are. They're like, so that you had like the Gotham locations, the Seven Seas, the Hellscape with the sub locations in them. I kind of skipped over most of these, to be honest.
Yeah, so did I, but it's worth mentioning.
Oh no, not me. I love this shit.
Oh, of course, Matt read them all.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the next story,
is gorgeous.
Yes.
The Dan Panosian on art and Vitae Ala writing.
Yeah.
there's ever a story meant for me, it's this one.
Yeah, so this is a Ivy story with a small guest appearance by Swamp Thing, and then Ultimate Wonder Woman. It's basically her. She's in the cage, you know, in the prison that Wonder Woman's keeping villains in, and she wants to get out. She's trying to get out. Wonder Woman tries to stop her, saying that you don't want to go out there. It's better down here. And Ivy makes her way out, and can I just call this what it is? It's the Mad Max Fury Road shot of Furiosa in the sand. With Ivy on, you know, screaming, "What have you done?" It's that pose.
That panel, specifically the way that you had the prose text on the left, you know, not in boxes or anything, just there. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. No, I thought this was really good too, and I'm not even like particularly like partial to Ivy, but I just thought this was really well written, and I cared about it because of how well written it was.
Yeah. Again, whoever the colorist was, I'm not seeing it here. I don't know where the credits page is. I've lost it.
It's on the last.
Love what they did here, where the first couple of pages it's all kind of you know, really muted colors, faded, the underground stuff, and then when you get outside into that desert, it pops. It's so vibrant, and you know, it's gorgeous in a horrific way because there's no greenery, but it's so good.
Yeah, and the story ends with Ivy back in her cell. Wonder Woman brings her some flowers that she's found,
like a promise.
So
yeah, the art in here, when I realized it was an Ivy story on top of it, and how she would respond to basically the desecration of the Earth, you know, by an evil Batman, I was like, oh, I hope she plays a bigger part going forward. That would be nice.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if she will, but at the very least, this is a nice little snippet of, you know, her reaction to it. But yeah, it does look gorgeous. It's probably the best story in the book, I would say.
Hands down for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, really good, really good. And then the next story, is this the last one, I think? I think it is, yeah.
Yes.
Is probably the weakest one for me, I thought.
Yeah, it's Priest doing what Priest does, where there's a lot of subtext in...
I thought there's not enough pages for him to cram as much of his subtext in here that he tried to. This is another one where I thought there was too much dialogue. I mean, it's
like just an extra 2 or 3 pages, I think, would have been fine.
It's Batman and Jonah Hex hunting the Joker dragon, basically, and killing it, and that sounds like it should be really fun. But honestly, I was just not into it at all.
But the lesson is that because Batman's embraced death, right, which is a nice take because he's taking the Black Lantern ring, that all these Joker dragons were something from Earth that was, and you know, so Batman's trying to protect, even though it's this Joker dragon and it's trying to kill them, Batman's trying to do his best to still at the end of the day save it, which I liked, but it took way too many words to get that across. You know.
Yeah. So, also, Matt saying Earth that was just made me think of Firefly. So thank you for that, Matt.
Well, I did it on purpose.
I did really like the art in this last story, though.
The art,
it's really good.
No, the art is good. The art is good. I just didn't enjoy reading it, like, almost at all.
It was a bit wordy.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it, though.
So, yeah, I'll basically do it. That is the Death Metal Guidebook. So these one-shots aren't doing so bad so far, I don't think, in terms of... and maybe that's the trick, is having one-shots, rather than try to, like, do minis for lots of things or create these big stories, saying, hey, here's 5 pages or 6 pages to deal with how Ivy reacts to this, make something out of it, and someone went away and did a beautiful little thing, is maybe actually a better tactic with these things, just to see how everyone reacts to it, and, you know, other little explorations. It's kind of the sort of thing we praise Deceased for a lot with Tom Taylor, is that he often finds ways to show how different corners, different characters of the universe are coping or surviving in the situation, or the tragic ending, as the case may be in that book specifically, because everyone's dying constantly. But so, you know, maybe there's some value there, and something to learn about how to handle these big events and crossovers going forward when it comes to, you know, tie-ins. So the main story is the main story, and that's just whatever it's going to be. But so, all right, Matt, what are you rating the Death Metal Guidebook?
I'm gonna give this one a 7.5. So yeah, I mean, I want to give it more for the Ivy story alone, but I can't do that. So,
Car?
Can I agree? 7.5, dragged down by the first and last stories, respectively, I think. All the ones in the middle I liked a lot more than
that. That's fair. I'm conflicted, because I think the first story, while not like a like a super standout or anything. I think it's a fine tie-in that sets up some stuff and teases stuff well enough. Ivy Story's the top one. Harley one's pretty solid. The Aquaman had a good art, but I wasn't really into the writing. And then the last one I think was definitely the weak point. So I'm going to say a 7. I'm going to go with a 7. But
right.
Honestly, if I'm rating tie-ins to an event a 7, I think they're doing pretty well, to be honest. Like, that's a pretty reasonable place for me to be.
Yeah, I think I gave the one a couple of weeks ago a 6. So this is for me a noticeable step up.
I think I went 7.5 in the last one. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and check. But no, I think for standards is for these sort of tie-in things go. I think this is not a bad one to be playing at. I'm not annoyed. I'm not sitting going, oh, all these tie-ins, and yeah, maybe by the time we get to the 12th one, we might not feel quite the same. But I assume that given these are really playing into the start of all this, that as we progress to the later tie-ins, they'll tie into whatever the story's turned into by that point, and
yeah. So I was just looking for news too while we were talking.
Oh, sure.
Apparently there was a leak of who the main villain in the Suicide Squad 2 is. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but if it's true, it's very inspired.
Where would one see this?
I just went to Twitter. Ryan Higgins tweeted a thing out that if it was true, so I just clicked the hashtag and started scrolling, and I found a thing. Again, I don't want to spoil it for anybody that wouldn't want to know.
Okay,
but again,
now.
I fully trust James Gunn to do whatever.
Oh,
right?
shit.
Yeah.
That would be insane for a Suicide Squad movie specifically.
So yeah,
like that's a villain that if in other movies, other DC movies, I'd be like, okay, sure. That right. I mean, it's still a little bit out there, but
under Gunn's guidance, it makes perfect sense, and especially with some of his sensibilities,
it does.
Of course, it makes sense, right?
It's insane for a Suicide Squad movie, though.
Yes,
like it's kind of above and beyond their usual expected level.
Yeah. Wait for Pete to read it.
I'm trying to find it. Hold on.
He'll get there eventually.
Well, the tweet didn't actually link to anything. They didn't have any sort of link.
Pete, do you need me to show you?
Yeah, just message me.
All right. I will send it you on Discord if that's useful.
Yes, please do. I wish to see. Awaiting message. There we go.
There you go. So obviously anyone at home can go and just see this news for themselves if they choose to, and can extrapolate our reactions onto that.
I mean, I imagine it won't be a spoiler for the movie itself once they start having trailers and stuff, but
yeah,
right now
it's really fun. I'm
definitely intrigued.
I hope it takes some influence from a certain recent run.
Yeah. Also, when you look at how big that cast is, things start to make sense. And also, speaking around, and maybe people figure out off of some of these clues, but coming from the guy that did Slither, this villain fits right in. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. And I'm glad Matt waited till after we'd done the ratings there, because when I cut this up for YouTube, it's going to be a pain if he keeps interjecting news.
As it is right now, you can always just take that slice and edit back onto the end of the first section.
I could. That's very true.
See if he remembers.
But there was no real news in that first section, so I wasn't planning on putting that up as an individual thing.
Well, now maybe you will.
Maybe. Batman 97, James Tynion IV, writing with Jorge Jimenez on the art. And more Joker War Parts 3 here, I believe, is what we're on. And this, more Batman hallucinating, talking to fake Alfred in his ear, sort of giving up. More punchline stuff as well. The proper introduction to the Clown Hunter.
Really like all this opening punchline Clown Hunter stuff. I think that's all excellent. And then the Batman, hallucination stuff is okay.
So all the hype around Punchline, right? And I still don't have my Hellerism 3 and whatnot.
You'll never get it on that.
Right. So I wanted to not like this character, but Tynion, with each appearance, he's doing the pacing correctly. I feel like I'm becoming endeared to this villain.
Yeah,
right?
well, my favorite thing about the punch, I mean, I like her threatening the grunts because they're scared to go through the Narrows because of the Clown Hunter, and I like the scene with the Clown Hunter like burning them in the Batmobile alive and all that stuff. But
a couple of things on that. I love the lettering on Clown Hunter. It's just a different font.
Well,
it's a little bit smaller, rounder. It's really effective.
Well,
sure.
and it's all lowercase, so it stands out. Also, him calling the gas anti-clown toxin. I thought that was like, man, that's twisted. Like,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
so.
but what I was trying to say though is what I really like about it is actually later in the book. It's a later scene. It's when she goes to Joker. It breaks up in the middle of all the Batman stuff, and you know, she mentioned earlier on that the guy who's going to kill Batman, which made me think, because she says, who you scared of more? Are you scared of, you know, some kid, you know, killing, you know, grunts, or are you scared of the guy who's going to kill Batman? And it immediately made me go, does she understand the Joker the way she thinks she does, like as well as she thinks she does? Because I don't know if she does. If she truly believes, I mean, maybe this is the change. Maybe this is the time Joker's really going to try and do it. But I don't know. Part of me thinks that she's warped her own idea of what the Joker is in her head.
The only way I can buy this is maybe the fact that the Batman is no longer the Batman, right? He's not this myth anymore. He's Bruce Wayne. Maybe that's kind of ruined it a little bit for Joker. He's like, well, I might as well just kill him now. You know, the fun's over.
I mean,
I
maybe
could see that being the angle if they wanted to, but also, maybe Punchline's just wrong. Yeah,
I almost think it's more interesting if she's just because she's this like devout like believer of who the Joker is, and she's like, you know, this loyal follower. It's actually kind of interesting if she's misplaced like what she thinks he's all about. But the thing I really like though is later on when she's telling him about the Clown Hunter, and she's really pissed about he keeps killing her grunts, and Joker's reaction is like, it's wonderful, this is great news, and she's like, what, we're not going to do that about it? Well, no, of course we are, you know, go send some of the heavies in and go and crucify him in front of everyone, but this chaos, there's chaos happening because we're changing the city. I actually, like, sometimes conversations with the Joker, especially Joker and his henchmen, don't necessarily, you know, they usually go too far, whatever. I thought this was pitch perfect in terms of just the chaotic, evil, and playful side of Joker and the way he looks at the world differently. And then, of course, I also like Punchline's reaction to Joker implying that it's finally time to maybe kill Harley, and she's like, oh. It's like the actual bubble's about effing time, but the art makes it look like she's like a little girl who's just heard she's finally getting the ice cream she wants. It's like such a, you know, a cross between them. It's great.
And I think other writers fall into the trap of making Joker too crazy, but he has to have an idea of what's going on for him to be fully realized. That's why I like the Ledger Joker from Dark Knight, right? Is he's a liar, and he's like, do I look like a guy with a plan? Where he meticulously plans everything out, and so, but he rides that line because then he also, you know, ad-libs as he's going. And here I feel like that tone Tynion really gets.
Yeah.
With this conversation of with Punchline.
I also kind of dug when he's just kind of explaining to her, hey, you know, we made a move, so now we wait for him to make his move. And he's a little bit out of it, so it'll take a bit of time. But we wait because that's the game. It's back and forth. You know,
that's what I mean about the plan. Like, he has this plan, and he's not afraid to ad-lib if he can. He's like, well, yeah, maybe it's time to kill Batman, but we'll do it in due time, you know? But yeah, so it's I like that. And go ahead, Connor.
I'd just say the other reason that Punchline maybe says, oh, you know, the person is about to kill Batman, it's possible she knows that he's not. It's just a threat to scare the goons.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of interesting possibilities there with that. Like, you know, does she eventually break away from Joker, not because she becomes good like Harley, but because she realizes that the Joker's not exactly what she thought he was, and she wants to be her own type of villain that, you know, what she believed to aspire to be in the first place. So I thought all the Joker Punchline stuff in this was actually really good, and it's you know, sometimes we come out of comics going, the Joker stuff's maybe the weakest because they overplay the hand a little bit or whatever. This was not the case here. I actually thought this stuff was the best in the issue. That stuff was fine, you know, like fighting. He does a Daredevil thing where he puts like a blindfold over his eyes because he can't trust his eyes. It's a chance for Jimenez to draw a lot of big like fighting with fire in the background and all that.
I'm glad it was Jimenez on art because it looks great.
Oh sure, yeah.
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 Trying to get the cover that wasn't, this was very difficult because by the time I got to my shop, those were gone. So yeah. That wasn't good.
I actually really like the Harley stuff that comes after as well, like her having the sock puppet of Ace the Bat-Hound.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's me, Ace the Bat-Hound.
I don't know, that cracked me up. And then her giving Batman something to drink, be like, hey, this will cleanse your system. And then after drinks, it's like, oh, by the way, you're gonna trip balls first.
So yeah, I love the idea. So they go to this Eden that Ivy has set up, which I love. Just the idea that all the villains have a hideaway that Batman doesn't know about, because we saw it with Penguin, right? That they're all hanging out at his. So the fact that Ivy has her own somewhere, and then she basically gives him ayahuasca to make him come out of whatever he's in, and that cracked me up. Like, because of course that's Harley. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
The panel that close to his eye, just widening. That made me actually laugh.
Just before I go on for it, because I'm still sitting on this page, when Punchline and Joker are talking, I love the panel when she's talking about Clown Hunter. There's one panel of him in the middle of the page of him blowing up like a truck, presumably one of theirs. I thought the art in that particular panel just looked fantastic.
Yeah.
But the explosion behind him, it's really good. But so yeah, he trips balls and Harley's head goes Jokerized and then sort of basically falls off, but looks of it, or maybe does like a full like 360 clock kind of motion.
To me, it's with Jimenez has like an action thing. It's like it's snapping, reminiscent of Alfred.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I took it as, and again, leave it to Tynion to clean up these threads that King left. Well,
yeah. The final page, of course, is that Alfred's there because he's tripping and he's going to talk to Alfred. And I'm not necessarily sure if I'm excited about the idea of a Vision Quest style issue next time. But I mean, Tynion keeps doing good with this. So
at least it's only one issue and not 9.
And also, it's not even going to be the full issue because it also says next Harley Quinn versus Punchline round 2. So it's going to be interspersed with some real world action.
Yeah. Honestly, Harley vs Punchline, I'm looking forward to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I know, it's taken me years to realize this in comics. Is like, there's certain characters that annoy me, but when you can just enjoy them, in other ways. Like normally, like years ago, I would have been annoyed by Harley versus Punchline. So like, oh, they're just trying to sell. But it's like, well, no, maybe because it's Tynion writing it, or I'm just at a different place where I was like, oh no, that's something I want to see because it's been handled so well,
and it's been set up. It made me excited for it because of the first interaction, because of how both of them have like, and even just like small moments like this one where like Punchline's face when Joker says maybe it's time to finally kill Harley. Those little reactions from both of them separately whenever they talk about the other one has made me excited for the showdown. So it's just good writing, and it doesn't matter who you like or don't like. Good writing is, if it's good enough, can overcome almost anything in terms of that. See Tom Taylor and Jason Todd for example.
Well,
of such.
You see, also Tom Tater. That's a whole different
Tom Tater Tots.
Tom Tater, yeah. Tom Taylor and Dakin Dakin and Wolverine. Same kind of vibes.
Tom Tater is really upset because sometimes he gets confused with Tom Ting. So, Matt, what are you gonna give Batman?
I'm gonna give this one an 8, and I'm riding high on Jimenez's art here. I really like it.
Sure, Cara?
Yeah, it's an 8 from me too.
Damn it! Stop winding up with me.
See, this is the thing. I want to be a little more positive here, but I feel like I don't know if I want to go to the 8.5 because the Batman, fighting all the Jokers in his head, whatever. It's, that kind of.
That's what stops it being the 8.5 for me. That 4 or 5 page section.
So I'm also going to go with an 8, but I don't like this trend of all three of us having the same rating now, 2 books in a row.
Because now it makes my ratings actually mean something.
We didn't have the same rating on the last book. Me and Matt had 7.5, and Pete said 7.
But they were around the same,
I'll be honest, I forgot what we rated the last book. I assumed it was the same.
Damn it.
I don't remember these things, or I think I remember them, and clearly I don't. All right, Justice League 62. Jeff Loveness. No. Oh, I changed the wrong number. This is your fault for correcting me earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry for correcting something you had objectively wrong.
Yes, but you made me correct it, and now I swapped the wrong number, so now it was Justice League 62 and Aquaman 51, when it's supposed to be Aquaman 62 and Justice League 51. Alright. Justice League 51, Jeff Loveness writing, with Marcos Santucci. Was that all when I read this?
Yes.
Okay, it was just me. Alright, good to know.
I saw it was a Black Mercy story, and I was like, I should read this. And then I just, with Fandome stuff popping out, I didn't. Please tell me why I should read it, Pete.
I also like Loveness's issue of Shazam, which you weren't as hot on, so I mean it's maybe worth mentioning. But I like the tone this issue has. I mean, it is kind of arguably fluff. I will say one art critique at the very first page is there's this narration, right? We don't know who this narration is all throughout the issue. I mean, maybe you can guess, but it's not like immediately obvious. There's an issue. The first page is like Batman in one panel, Wonder Woman in another panel, Superman in the third panel, and it's meant to be all of them early on in their careers. And Batman's get his kill off for some reason, which is kind of weird that he's on a rooftop with his kill off. But whatever. The problem I have with it though is I think it's meant to be his buzz cut from like 0 year sort of times in terms of desperation. The problem is it looks bald. So I opened this book and went, why is Lex Luthor in the Batsuit? was my initial response. Now, I actually think the art generally is quite nice. So this is not like an ongoing art problem. It's just this one panel, he looks bald, so he looks like Lex Luthor.
Have we ever seen Lex in the Batsuit? Seen him in the super suit, of course.
It's probably hammed at some point. I mean, there's been a lot of time to go from.
If people are listening to this and you find that, you let me know, please.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't realize Connor left because I started looking at Japanese folklore stuff. And I was like, he's just being very quiet. He's gone from the panel. So
yes, it's gone.
But yeah.
So nice little touch though is that so there's a couple of pages of that just talking about who these characters are, and this narration keeps going, and it kind of starts to focus in on Batman a little bit by basically talking about Batman being scared of endings, and he's always scared of where things are going to go. But even though this is a little 2-issue fill-in, it does actually pick up from where the last one left off in the sense that they're on their way back to Earth in a spaceship. So it actually does kind of try to have some sense of continuity, even though
editorial did their job.
Yeah. Even though tonally it feels completely different, and for the better, I would say. I kind of like the feeling of this one, and the art for the most part is quite nice. The flashbacks have kind of a more washed out look to them, which is not a unique idea, but it works quite well. It shows kind of a progression of the Trinity through the years and where they all are now, which is Superman revealing his identity, and the narration's kind of questioning, like, Batman, are you tempted by this? Do you wish you could be honest and do this? But when they come through warp drive or whatever they call it in DC, continuity, they're not at Earth. They're expecting to be at Earth and they're not there. They're somewhere else. There's like lots of ships that have been destroyed floating around the planet. They go down to check out what's going on, and there's this sort of creepy forest. And they basically find a giant Black Mercy. It's like a giant tree trunk, and there's like vines everywhere. It's like, and I think they actually kind of technically reference this could be referencing any Black Mercy story really, but I think they're referencing that first arc of Trinity from early Rebirth. Where Superman or one of them says something to the effect of, "Oh, we dealt with a Black Mercy a few years ago, but it was small, and this is huge. Don't let it touch you." But of course, one by one, it starts like grabbing them and sort of entombing them in the vines and all the rest of it. It's really good. Again, this issue flowed super quick. It made me realize just kind of how wordy the last arc of Justice League was, because this flowed really well and nicely. Lots of pretty art, lots of good colors. Nice money shots for Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash. They all get kind of their moments to look good here. And the narration, when we eventually get to it, the idea, because Black Mercy, it's not Black Mercy in the narration, but it's essentially saying that, but it's kind of Black Mercy talking through a specific character, which it makes sense when you get to it. But it says that it already kind of had the grasp on them even before they landed on the planet. It was kind of like, it pulled them here. Maybe there'll be some context in the second part for how it did that. Maybe probably not though, I suspect. It's just big and powerful. But the narration the whole time is being like a sort of zombified Martha Wayne, which is fine because it's Black Mercy. It's this it ends with Batman being in the Black Mercy, and that's Martha Wayne talking to him. I'm the only one who can get you to stop. The idea being that the dream for Batman is that he can stop and he can have a normal life and he can do something that isn't this, an end in tragedy like everything always does with him. So that's the temptation. So it's honestly, I thought it was well written. I thought it flowed really well. I thought the art was good. Outside of that one issue, that one panel at the start that I thought Lex Luthor was dressed as Batman. But yeah, I thought it was good. Honestly, like I think Loveness, I felt I've enjoyed the couple of fill-ins that he's done so far. I'd be curious to see him on something longer, but for a little 2-issue thing before we get to the death metal arc that ties in, I'm fine. I'm definitely reading the next one. I was happy enough with this. I probably like it more than the last arc, so
yeah. Might have to go back and actually read this now.
I'd recommend. I mean, if you read it and don't like it that much, then I mean, there's only one more issue of it, so it's not
right.
a huge
Yeah,
commitment.
no, I just I'm a sucker for a Black Mercy story. It's my favorite. One of my favorite Superman stories is The Man Who Has Everything. That story hits hard.
I think my favorite thing about it is as this narration's playing out, showing all these sort of like classic moments of the Trinity, is it feels very kind of omnipotent. It feels it's got this kind of eerie feel about it, and I kind of appreciate that. So, yeah. I would probably give it. Honestly, let me give it an 8. Yeah, give it an 8. I enjoyed it. So there you go. That is Justice League. 51. 51.
Get there in the end.
Yes.
Before you move on to the next book, there's just a little tidbit from Fandom. The current director of the Flash movie, because God knows how many there has been or will be. Just a quote from him: "The cinematic multiverse is going to be born out of this movie." And it says, the film will heavily lean into the idea of a multiverse and is described as a time travel story, and then showed some concept art. The first 2 pieces of concept art released, one is just, a Flash image, and the second is Flash with Keaton's Batman. That is the 2 pieces of concept art that they released as the first things.
I don't like. I mean, obviously, if a multiverse movie where there's glimpses of all the other movies that are all otherwise disconnected sounds like a fun idea and it's a good DC idea. But I don't want Ezra Miller's Flash. I don't want this connected to the previous Justice League stuff. I just burn it all to the ground.
Seems to me like they're hedging their bets now, and I don't like that.
No, they're using this as a way out, essentially.
Yeah.
Burn it all to the ground and start from scratch is my recommendation.
I think that's what they're trying to do, but doing it through a movie. They're using the movie as the matches.
Which is a fine in concept. I just hate that it's the first Flash movie that they're doing it with. Like, give Flash a proper movie. Anywho.
Yeah.
Okay. Aquaman 62. Jordan Clark writing with Marco Santucci on art. Did anyone else forget there was a 2-issue fill-in on Aquaman? Because I did.
No, because I spoke about it in the solicits when
I thought it already happened.
Why Kelly Sue was delayed.
Yeah, I thought it already happened for some reason. I don't know why. But yes, 2-issue fill-in. So this is the first of the 2. It's an Aqualad focused story. It kind of fills in some gaps, sort of what he was doing to help save the baby and what he's doing now during the actual wedding, kind of thing. I mean, I like that they made a point of like sort of cornering something off and saying, okay, we'll have the 2-issue fill-in be on this other character, set it in between, kind of a tie-in to what the main story is. It was okay, basically.
Yeah, I like Jackson a lot, and the dynamic with him and Black Manta, but it just seems this really felt like a fill-in.
Yeah,
I liked the back half where he's in Zebel a lot more than the first half.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
I mean,
like the little bit like family history, him hitting it off with this guard. That stuff was all right.
Yeah, well, I like the AI grandpa trying to explain to him about why his dad's the way that he is, and Jack's like, well, you kind of messed up there. And he's like, well, you don't know what it was like. He goes, no, I kind of know what it's like to be treated like I'm less than, So I did like that sentiment there, but the problem is it feels like a fill-in.
Yeah,
it kind of detracts from the momentum that we had going from the last one. And Zebel feels differently than what I remember. Like,
sure, yeah.
I know there's supposed to be a Spartan-esque version of Atlantis, right? They're much more warlike, and so to see their world
to the Athens.
Yeah, right.
It's one of these circumstantial things where, Kelly Sue needed extra time to finish her last couple issues, and obviously DC don't want to just have it be gone for 2 months, so we have some fill-ins instead, and it's okay. It's maybe a little bit wordy in places for me. Like the stuff, I kind of like him talking to the AI version of his grandfather. I know it kind of at one point it kind of brings in sort of his experience as a young black man at one point. And I think I saw an article in Drama saying that the second part was going to delve into that theme a little bit more, which I think is an interesting tactic to take and definitely something to delve into. Something that you definitely can't do with Aquaman, being the big blonde white dude that he is. So I think that's interesting. It is funny because I get what Connor's saying about the hitting it off with the guard, but it felt like a sort of rushed little quick romance for the sake of this plot, bizarrely. I don't know. It felt a little...
Yeah.
I'm glad because it didn't go too far with them. It was just it's there was just a mutual curiosity at first, right? As they're from these different worlds, and then the I like that page where it's just 20 minutes later, 45 minutes later, an hour later, just them talking about different things and just kind of getting to know each other, just conversation. I like that stuff.
I think, the art's not terrible, but I think if the art was really good, I might really enjoy him with the big fish stuff, but as it is, it just feels like the filler stuff to me.
Yeah.
If the art was really good and I was like wowed by the visuals of it, I'd just have fun with it probably. But because it's just kind of, ho-hum, it feels like just, here's a generic action-y thing to get into the city.
A trend with this entire run is, and this is all the artists, whenever they've done the Jackson stuff, it's looked a bit off. Like none of them quite know how to draw him, it seems.
Yeah.
That's there's a lot of different variations of Jackson, more than anyone else, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. No, it's painfully okay. I got really disappointed because I forgot it was a fill-in, so I got to the credits page at the start and went, oh, it's not Kelly Sue. We're doing other things. Oh, that's a shame. But the book ends. The trench are invading Zebel. So that's a big cliffhanger.
Which is good and bad. I really like the trench. They're fun when they show up, but I like the mystery and the horror of them. And I think just doing them in a 2-part fill-in takes away a lot. It's going to take away some of the mystique, and it's overusing them a bit.
But see, I like here that they, judging from the last issue when they appeared at the wedding, and they seemed to be like playing at being, I guess, civilized, because the only time I remember them, they, was in John's as Aquaman.
Yeah.
Right. And they were just like these savage creatures. But the fact like they have this hierarchy and they're trying to play at being like the Atlanteans, and then to see them here doing the complete opposite, I think it's a fun dichotomy between the two of them. But yeah, so we'll see where it goes,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say on it. It was kind of, I had this, I read the guidebook and Justice League first, thinking that the guidebook, because I didn't know what that was going to be like. I thought this might be, and it's longer, this might be a slog, and it actually surprisingly wasn't, which is nice, and Justice League ended up being quite enjoyable, so I was going, that was quite good. I specifically left Aquaman and Batman to last because they felt like the more surefire things. So when I got to Aquaman, it wasn't Kelly Sue. I was like, oh, maybe I should have gotten this out of the way first. So that's what it is. Matt, what do you give it, Aquaman 62?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
Okay, Connor?
Finally, we diverge. It's a 6 for me.
Yeah, I'm probably more in the 6 territory with this one, I think. So.
All right.
There you go.
I feel better.
Back to usual, Matt, overrating things.
I know.
Yep.
So that will take me on to a Patreon book. So every month, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our patrons, one of the higher tiers, can make me or Connor read a book. It can be an old book, it can be a non-DC book, and hell, it can even be a book that the all two of us are reading and they force Connor to read too sometimes.
More on that next week.
More on that next week. But yes, so I'm going to read American Vampire issue 9 here, and I'm actually still one month behind on these. I keep meaning to fit an extra one in, And I almost did both of them this week, but I felt that would be cheating because I would inherently talk about each one less because if I bundled them together. So I made a conscious choice not to do that, so I wasn't skimping on the actual time spent talking about them. I don't want Tyler to feel like I'm shortchanging him there. But this is issue 9. This is the end of the second arc, An American Vampire, with Cash. And the cliffhanger at the end of the last issue, of course, was that Cash's father was the monstrous vampire that was killing people. But notably, I assumed that he'd been turned, or he wasn't killed, or what. It turns out he was already his entire life he was this vampire.
Yeah, he's like 900 years old.
Yeah, I think 700.
Like,
700 was the exact number given.
It's been a while since I read this.
Yeah. I'd forgotten this. So this was really interesting getting into this. And I think really poignant starting with a flashback of how his father adopted him. He was on this orphan train where they'd get off and offer people like orphans at the train stations, which really old-timey. And no one picks him, but then the sheriff comes in and says, hey, I'll take this kid. Let's deputize him. And it's a really sweet scene. And it's kind of a perfect thing because it's one of those things where it'd been a few weeks, maybe a month since I'd read the last issue, and as often with comic books, I'm just kind of remembering what the last one ended with, and it was this kind of slow realization as I was reading this opening scene that the last one ended with him being the monster. I'm like, oh, this is actually really bittersweet that I'm remembering what happened. So really well done in that sense. This issue has Cash with Felicia and the other agent, the dude, going to the caves where he suspects his father will be, and we see like the love of his life, this other vampire, like this race of vampires was wiped out by the other vampires hundreds of years ago. It's kind of like a rare that they found one still existing, and they have this heart to heart, and Cash wasn't expecting him to be this monster because he never killed anyone, and there's a lot of mythology tidbit that he was taking like certain medication for I think it was diabetes, but it was actually one of the ingredients was actually helping him like deal with the sun pain, because he could be out in the sun but it would cause great pain, but he's got an immunity, his skin has an immunity because of this drug that he was taking. But all the vampires that have been investing in the dam and in Vegas show up and want to kill Cash's father. And of course, Cash isn't happy with this. The agents have snuck in, and Skinner shows up, of course, and Skinner helps fight these other vampires. Gorgeous action, obviously. Albuquerque's arcs going nuts. It is worth mentioning the first few pages were in Albuquerque. I can't remember who it was. I'll get to that in the end because the credits at the end. But worth mentioning. Great action, swipes, blood. At one point, there's a fun enough, given the episode of 6 Feet Under that me and Cora just talked about yesterday. There's a decapitation that's actually from the mouth up, not the neck up, which is particularly brutal, which I really like. It's good stuff. So, no, a lot of action. It was a really quick read because of that, actually, because there was so much of it was the action and all this stuff. But things get really dark at the end of the story. Skinner actually kills Cash's father, which is funny because that's what Skinner was accused of doing the entire story. So there's a nice irony that he didn't actually kill him because he couldn't. Well, he can be killed, but not killed in the same way that they thought he died. And it was more about Cash's father protecting his identity, because obviously if he's not aging, so if he's the same person for too long, people start to say, hey, why isn't he getting older? And he even says that he really kept this identity a little bit longer than he should have, but he wanted to watch his son grow up because he did care about him. But ultimately he was at the point where he'd been this character now for like 30, 40 years without aging, so he kind of had to fake his death and go into hiding and maybe pop up somewhere else with a new identity. So this is the sort of thing you see in a lot of stories. I mean, I did a Twilight Zone episode just from season 1 of the classic show that has kind of a similar idea in the plot, where it's this immortal guy who has to keep changing his name and moving around so no one suspects anything. Starring the actor who was in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's good. So yeah, the big ending though is that actually no, there's a detail here we can't overlook, is that one of them tries to bite Felicia Book and like rescinds in horror and says, "Oh God, what are you?" So I think that's worth mentioning for future. Definitely not the last we've seen of her. I'm positive I remember a bit more of her. She also feels important. It's kind of a big thing.
The last name Book is very important in
of course, yeah.
from what I remember. So even if it's not her, that legacy, she'll play into. So,
yeah. So they go after Skinner, Cash and Felicia. She's got obviously a special gun, or the gun's not special, but the bullets are special. Bullets for the vampires. But she's got a couple of golden bullets which will hurt Skinner. And they play a little bit of trick on him because they actually switch guns so that Skinner thinks that she's got the gun that will kill him, but it's actually him. So he does get shot. But this is really dark. He's got Cash's wife, his pregnant wife, and he's threatening to inject her with his blood. And the dark end here is that you don't really know for sure like if he really gets to do it or not before he gets shot. But the epilogue stuff, which is super dark. Yeah, Skinner does get away. He's pulled out the bullet. Felicia's sort of standing there. And in the epilogue montage, we see like the POV of the birth, the classic looking up at the doctor and, Cash is there. And it sounds really dark. And the last page of the story is Cash like wandering with a sort of sack over his back with clearly a child who is also a monster in his sack. It's clearly some sort of vampire-esque monster. The exact makeup of it, I mean, is open for debate, but we'll see.
Yep.
And I'm assuming Matt's remembering because I don't remember.
No, I know because I talked to Snyder about this.
Oh, really?
I got my book signed. Yeah, because I told him how much I enjoyed that arc being, born and raised here, and it was set there during the 20s and stuff. And he had said at the time, as before Second Cycle came out, he had a lot more planned for those characters going forward and whatnot. And of course, I don't want to spoil this for people that don't know, right? So more stuff happens with Cash down the line and stuff. So
yeah, it's worth mentioning at the end, he's actually walking in the snow. He's in Colorado, and
he's not in Vegas anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting, like, obviously, image shift, because obviously everything that's so far in this story has all been desert and, oranges and yellows and whatever. And we have this white. It actually, do you get me vibes off at the end when he's walking? Not in tone or anything, but just the visual. And I guess because of the time period as well, because it's relatively close to when it was made. But it was giving me Invisible Man vibes. The original Invisible Man, there's a lot of him wandering in the snow. So just him walking around with a sack in the snow was giving me Invisible Man vibes, of all things. But that last panel is great when you just see like the two eyes and the darkness of the sack. It looks really good.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. The issue is really solid. I've liked the arc a lot. Is it better than the first arc? I mean, that's so hard to say. I think Pearl's story is such the classic, girl gets taken and then gets revenged. There's just, but I think it builds so well in the mythology between both arcs, and Skinner really is a bastard. You feel like he's kind of on Pearl's side at points, but goddamn, he's a bastard by the end of this story and what he's done to this kid. Well,
yeah, exactly. You never. Anytime you find yourself rooting for Skinner, you got to think about, am I a horrible person? Right? Because something bad is coming down the way. Like, it's Skinner sweet.
Like, obviously, at times he's fighting a lot of other villains, so you're kind of like, he's good enough to take them on, so you're kind of rooting for him. But
yeah, he's definitely chaotic neutral. He's out for himself, or neutral evil, I guess you could say. I'm not good at these, but he definitely is out for himself more than anybody, so if he's gonna backstab somebody, he's gonna do it. And oh man, you get to reread, although I can do it too, but Survival of the Fittest and that whole arc set during World War II, oh man, big fan.
And that's at the end of the third trade, so I'll be going straight on to issue 10 next, I believe. So no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying rereading this, and obviously I remember a lot of characters, I remember some stuff, but there's definitely a lot of details I've forgotten over time. So no, it's good stuff. I'm enjoying working through it. So Tyler's nice to me and makes me read a good book, which is excellent news.
You say that like he doesn't make me read a good book.
That's true, but you also have David making you read a terrible book.
No, I have that on top of that, but that's not Tyler's fault.
And then you also have to read Action Comics next week, which is really, really funny. So
yeah. Wait, is he having to jump in? Yep. Or does he have to go back?
No, he's jumping in. He's reading the issue we're doing.
Oh, dude, I feel so bad. I'm not even gonna laugh at that.
Oh, I will.
Yep.
I like to think of myself as chaotic good on a good day.
Chaotic good?
Maybe chaotic neutral at push. I'll give you that.
Chaotic neutral at best.
I'm not evil. I've got a heart of gold.
All I don't know is if he got Pete, it's probably with gold bullets. That's all. He has a heart of gold.
There you go.
Anyways, tell us about Undiscovered Country 7.
Well, let me introduce it. So yeah, Patreon book next for Connor, Undiscovered Country issue 7. I don't know why I insisted on doing that because I don't even have the creators written down.
Yeah, I was wondering, like you never usually do.
Yeah, on you go, Connor.
Oh, thank you. It's Snyder and Soul writing, Camuncoli on art, but also joined by Leonardo Grassi this time, who I'm not familiar with. But I just thought it was notable because it's all been Camuncoli up to this point on his own. So this is the start of the second arc. And if you recall, we left the last arc with them getting out of the Destiny Zone. They were on the train. They got through into the next zone. And Dr. Elgin, the old I want you soldier guy that's been kind of guiding them, died. That was the end of the last arc. He got shot as they were going through the tunnels. And this issue actually opens with a flashback to 21 years ago. And this is kind of a lot like the history of this current state of America. This is Elgin as a younger man, along with the Graves parents, both doctors. And they're going for a meeting with the entire U.S. government as it is right now, which is all 13 zones, I believe. Out of the 13 United Sovereign Territories, 7 zones are present so far. So that's what we got here for the meeting. And then representatives for others kind of show up. You got Destiny, Unity, Valor, Conquest, Capital, and Bounty, the 7 that it lists as the zones. But again, this is just setting up just what this world is right now. And Elgin's here to basically complain because Elgin and the Graves represent Aurora. And they seem to be kind of an organization, perhaps, that are guiding America right now. And he's got a box with and what he pulls out is actually one of the lizard fish crossbreed mutations that we saw in the first arc. And he's basically, he's like, no, I'm really alarmed by this because the people in Destiny have been bioengineering outside of our advice. And they kind of hit back going, that's the whole point of this America right now is, each of the 13 zones gets complete autonomy. There is, federalism is completely dead. We do whatever we want. No regulation, little to no regulation, no taxation, no gun laws, and no zone unity. So it's a whole wild world right now. Is kind of the idea, and the implication is Aurora pushed for this. They started it. This was their idea, but now Elgin's kind of getting worried. Things are going too far. And he's worried about Zone Bounty's cyclotronic generators. And, they're experimenting with them and they're going off books and pushing them further than they are. And he warns that if this goes wrong, something could go wrong with time itself, which is obviously clearly something does go wrong because time itself has been very screwed up in the first arc. There's kind of been a lot of the setting. This is like the first, 8-9 pages of the book. And it's all just this backstory. And it's probably my favorite part of the issue. It's absolutely fascinating stuff. Just the history of this world and just kind of the ideas they're playing at, and the root problems with America is kind of what this book is looking at, and it's so interesting. But then we do cut back to the main cast for the rest of the issue. They're on the train. Elgin, a couple others, lying dead. And they gotta keep going. The journalist talks to the Graves store, and it's like, hey, I know you felt like I shouldn't have stabbed you with that cure for the sky disease, but I just did what I felt like was necessary. But I'm sorry. And she's like, it's all right. I guess I'm alive. I can't really be too mad. And she hands the journalist hands her a journal of some sorts. It seems to be it's a little pocketbook notebook, one of the ring binder ones that flips over, like a journalist pad that you'd see actually. And she says she found it on Sam's body, so I think she'd want you or Daniel to have it. So the strong implication is that this is from their parents, but we don't actually see what it is or what's in it. but it should be interesting. But they get out of the tunnel, they're on the train, and they're in the new zone. I'm not sure what zone this is off the top of my head. I don't remember. I don't know if they know. I actually know. I think it was on the map last time, though, to be honest. But they come out in this forest, this bleached white forest. The trees, all the trunks are bleached white, but they've got like these red and blue veins running up them. So, it's red, white, and blue. Very clear imagery. And then these strands of like ribbon, like silk ribbon almost, start coming out of the ground. Like they're flapping and, and swooping and going all around the train, and they derail it. And it's, you have no idea what this is. It's completely coming out of the ground entirely. And then the ground, they get off the train, they get out of the way, and the ground swallows the train. It's like it's eating the train. And they're all kind of horrified. They talk about how they're a bit stuck, and this white, whatever they are, it looks kind of like snow, but it's like it's warm, and they can feel it pulsing. And it's like, what the hell are they in? I'm kind of getting, it almost feels kind of spider silky. It's kind of the impression I'm getting, but on a huge scale. But I don't know for certain. And just interspersed with this, there's actually a flashback again to the Graves' father talking to Elgin. It's like, hey, if you don't stop what you're doing, pushing this, they're going to arrest you. And if that doesn't stop you, they will kill you. You know that, right? And Elgin's like, yeah, I know. And obviously this is cut into where we know he's died in the present day. He's got this far. And then we have the final pages is Daniel, he's getting a bit grabbed by the strands, but manages to break out quickly and start running. And then a figure comes out of the trees. He's dressed like a white suit with these red eyes. He's got like this mask on, and he takes off the mask, and it's, my name is Dr. Sam Elgin, and I want you to save America. And it's the whole thing again, and it's like, wait, what? How many copies of this guy are there? Are they clones? Is it time travel? Like, what, I don't know what shenanigans they're playing with here, but I'm here for it. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, just the history of this world, what they're delving into, is by far the most fascinating part for me. Even though it's, I feel like I should be more interested in the present day story, but it's, well, that's solid, and I'm enjoying it. Just the history of this world and the thematic elements of it are where it's shining for me right now. But it's a really great issue. It's a solid 8.
Cool. More fandom updates. There's some leaked images. There's some leaked images from the Batman trailer, and I have to laugh because his hair in one of them looks like Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3 when he's all symbiote, like crazy emo. And I'm sure it's just a bad image, just not like a bad still taken for the middle of a moment, but still, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, we had the Suicide Squad roll call. Yeah,
the Harley Quinn costume is easily the best one they've had in the movie.
It's very reminiscent of the new one that she's getting in the Suicide Squad book.
It looks a lot like the recent Injustice 2 costume, I think.
Yeah, the kind of the leather outfit.
Yeah, but it's red and black. Finally, it's not like she's not in a crop top. She's not in whatever weird thing she was wearing in Birds of Prey. That stupid yellow suit or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. Hey, I'd like that.
Me too. With Birds, it felt like very incidental that she was just wearing what she had. This feels more,
It's an actual costume as opposed to saying, in Birds, it was just what she had lying around. And, it's just every day, and that's kind of what that movie was.
Yeah, I have a deep knowledge of DC characters, and I didn't recognize half of the people that these people are playing in there, which is a good sign.
Which means they're going to die.
Gunn did his homework. Because, I'm familiar with a name like Peacemaker, who apparently Cena is playing. And Mongal is showing up in the movie.
Apparently, during the panel, Gunn kept referencing the Ostrander run.
Okay.
So cool. I think that's where he's taking a lot of his influence from.
Perfect. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm gonna have to watch it with sound, because as Connor was talking about Undiscovered Country, is not that I'm trying to be rude, but this is a book I plan on reading.
I get it.
I'm trying not to spoil. Yeah, too much. But I was watching it without sound, and I was like, oh man. And yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion's playing someone called TDK, who for the life of me I can't figure out.
It's clearly the Dark Knight.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I assume we'll have actually more juicy stuff to talk about next week. But yeah, so we'll get to the part of the show then where we pick our favorites of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, top 5 books. Although in this case it's only going to be top 4 or 3 depending on how many you read. So yes, we'll start off with best panel/moment, Matt, if you want to take us away.
So mine's from the Ivy story in right Shocker.
Is it the Mad Max panel?
It's the Mad Max panel.
There you go.
It's fantastic. It's you have the contrasting colors and just she's this bright green against the yellow and there's a lot of negative space. It looks great.
That's fair, Connor.
Yeah, mine is also that.
I mean,
damn it.
I could have been tempted, but just for the sake of being different, let me go elsewhere here.
The only other thing that even came close this week wasn't even a DC book for me. So
sure,
you know.
Well, I'm not going to pick American Vampire as much as it was temptation.
Oh no, I mean it wasn't even something on this. It was a page in Once and Future which did a homage to a movie that it referenced it in the dialogue early in the issue, and it was like okay, whatever. And then they did a big visual gag with it later that made me laugh very loudly at 1 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why I said it like that. That was weird.
So now I will go with the look on Punchline's face when Joker says maybe it's time to kill Harley, because I thought that was a really standout moment. I mean, really, it's the Ivy panel, but I'm just being different. So yes, cool. Best cover of the week. I'll dive in here first. A couple of good variants this week. Aquaman's is pretty nifty. Justice League is pretty nifty, but I have to go with the Mattina Batman one, which, to be honest, Mattina, when he does Batman covers, tends to have a good chance of winning for me. But
it says a lot that the Mattina Batman cover is my 4th choice this week.
Oh.
Okay, go on. I mean, out of the others, I mean, I'm trying to narrow it down. So it's the Justice League variant, the Aquaman variant, or the Guidebook variant. The Dodson's cover is fantastic. The Mattina one is good, but it's okay. It's part of the course for Mattina. It's just it's good. I think I'll go with the Justice League one. I like Darrington.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, mine's the Guidebook Dodson's. I can't get enough Dodson's this week, so I read Adventure Man, and everything was great.
I really need to read that, don't I?
Yes, you do. It's so good. Well, I got to read the 3rd issue, but when I was looking through the variants, I was like, oh, okay, well, this looks great. Dodson's with John Harley and Wonder Woman, like it's good. Also, the regular cover too is not bad. It does look like an album cover for a metal band that I would definitely listen to.
Jasmine Pucci one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of the deceased variants.
All right, Matt, what's your cover?
The cover's the Guidebook variant, the Dodson's.
Sure. All right, then best art of the week. Connor can start us off.
I mean, it's a bit unfair because Dark Knight. Screw it. I'll go with Dark Knight's Guidebook. I like all of them. Some more than others, but I think all of them outshine. Batman is very good. Aquaman, I don't think really holds up to the other 2 choices here for me. But I think Dark Knight, the Guidebook, I think it has enough in there that and no one's bad that it drags it below Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, Batman's pretty great, and the Guidebook's also pretty. And I actually think Justice League, Robson Rocha, of course. You've seen his work, you know what he's like. I think for the most part, it's really good as well. I'm having a tough time deciding if I want to give it to the collection of art from Guidebook versus obviously the consistent. Because I think maybe what's gone against Guidebook for me is that the first story, which is the most pages, is probably the least favorite of my art in that book. So I think based on that, I'm going to go with Batman. But it's an awkward choice, to be honest. Matt, what are you giving?
I'm going with Jimenez. I mean, you guys have already said what I was going to say about the Guidebook, that it is a very nice collection. But it is, they're all different. I mean, Cloonan's was up there, so is the Passarin and the Ivy story. But Jimenez and what he does with the facial expressions with Joker and Punchline and Bruce and Harley. Like it really is a storytelling key there. Like he's working just as hard as Tynion is with the words. So yeah.
Yep. All right, top books of the week then, Matt, go.
So number 1 is Batman, which weird. Number 2 is, I gotta relook and try to remember myself. Oh, number 2 is the Guidebook, and number 3 is Aquaman. That's only 3 books.
There you go. Connor.
Same order.
All right, fair enough. My number 1 is... That's actually quite tough for me between Batman and Justice League, which is a nice thing in a way, but it's kind of weird. I'll probably go Batman, Justice League, Guidebook, and then Aquaman's in last place. Just kind of... To be honest, the top 3, though, were all they're reasonably close. So, cool. I mean, for a small week, I guess, it's nice to have a couple of solid things to talk about. This is where I'll tell you, though, what's coming next week on the show. Along with whatever news we get from Fandom, now that we're wrapping up the show, because we don't really have time for any more. I mean, unless there's something that breaks like immediately. But coming next week from DC Comics is Detective Comics 1026. Obviously, we've not been doing that, but we will be looking at 1027 because that's a big special issue with lots of stories in it. So that's coming soon. But the Flash 760 is out next week. Action Comics 1024, which all 3 of us will be reading.
Yes, I will be jumping into the House of Kent Part 3.
Buddy, I'm sorry.
I'm not. Wonder Woman 761's coming out. Red Hood Outlaw 48. Batgirl 48. Teen Titans Annual number 2. Batman 3 Jokers issue 1, of course, kind of been the big main event of the week. Justice League Dark 25. Batman Superman 11. Batman Beyond 46. John Constantine Hellblazer issue 9. The Question, The Deaths of Vic Sage issue 4. Also really looking forward to that. Legion of Superheroes issue 8, Suicide Squad issue 8, so that was a exciting Tom Taylor book's coming out. Plunge issue 6, the final issue, or is that 7 issues? That may be 7.
No, I think it's just
Plunge is 6.
Plunge is 6, okay, so that's the last issue of that, that's cool.
Yep, last issue.
And then, obviously a little bit more tangential, these ones, but I'll just mention Books of Magic 22, The Last God issue 8, and Amethyst issue 5 are also coming out, so very cool. So bigger week next week, we've got plenty to talk about, which is nice, so no questions, I guess is what I'm saying.
We've got like 10 books between us plus news, and some of those books are meaty sized.
Oh yeah, Three Jokers is going to be a conversation. No doubt about that. So, and hell, even getting a Jeff Johns comics a bit of a special occasion now these days.
Yeah.
Very
much so.
So that's cool. So that we'll see you next time for that. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month of August. So thank you to Alison M. Fordyce, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palisades, David Sharp, Board Now, Zammer Jammer, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, and Brett Williams. You're all Patreon producers, so thank you very much. That last one in particular, Brett Williams, is the one who's making Connor Read Action Comics, so he's my favourite.
Don't know what he's getting out of that, but...
that tone right there.
Pete's favorite. That's what it is.
He gets to be my favorite.
Do you really want that though? Like
that is like being a really shitty teacher's pet.
I think you underestimate my stature amongst the Male Fuzz TV community.
I underestimate nothing.
All right.
So, yes, if you want to be supporters, of course, of Patreon, you don't have to be a Patreon producer. You can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some exclusives for your trouble. At the $5 tier in particular, you get early access to comics from the Multiverse and previously in the Multiverse, the show where me and Connor talk about old DC comic runs. You get those 1 day early on Patreon, so please go and have a look and see if you're interested in helping keeping all the content coming. You can support us for free, of course, though, if you're on YouTube by hitting the like button. It helps us out a lot and more people will find us that way. Same idea if you're on iTunes or wherever, you can rate the podcast and give us a review, give us a 5-star review, more people will find us. And obviously share us on Twitter, things like that. You can get us on Twitter, of course, at DC Comics Podcast for updates and all sorts. So go and have a look at that. But otherwise, that's pretty much all the things that I have to promote. I'll just say that The Boys Season 2 is coming soon, and me and Connor will be reviewing that on MaleFuzz TV, the YouTube channel, if you listen to the podcast version.
Sounded like you said The Boys Season 2, and I was like, what did I miss?
No, The Boys. Amazon Prime's The Boys. Yeah. Based on the comic book by Garth Ennis.
We have also been reviewing Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, that's almost done. We've got I mean, episode 9 review started to go out, but we've recorded that, so just 10 for us to review now. But that'll be done very shortly. And if you want the audio podcast version of those, there is the Almost Cancelled TV audio podcast, where all of the TV reviews that me and Connor do go on as an audio feed, so you can get that there too, if you're interested. But yeah, there you go. That is everything. That's episode 215 of Comics from the Multiverse. So join us for the Fandome Fallout edition next week, and let's get a ring to it. I may just be the title next week, to be honest.
Watch there be nothing.
Well, I know there might be. Like, literally all the things we've had so far, outside of the actual trailer for the Batman, which I'm sure we'll talk about, like, that might be it. Depending. But thank you very much, once again, for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Go Knights, go. Right, Connor?
Hell yeah.